Welcome to the Sean Chandler Podcast, a place to talk movies and nerd culture way too much. Joining me, as always, is Griffin. Griffin, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, man. Not too much to complain about or really talk about because nothing's really changed in the world over the past couple months. So it's the same old thing, man.
Every day is exactly. Hey, what have you been up to? Staying home, watching TV, and hearing movie
hmm
news about more things that have been delayed. So,
Yeah, yeah,
like, it really does feel like every day is kind of the same.
yeah,
Even here in Texas, like we should be getting into spring. It should be getting hot outside, but for some reason we've had this delayed rainy season, which actually might
yeah,
play into this podcast at some point in time because it was like pouring rain 5 minutes
yeah.
ago, and there's like I saw lightning right out this window, so my power could cut out at any point in time in the middle of this. But like even because of that, it doesn't feel like the seasons are changing at all. We're just like stuck in this perpetual bizarre moment in human history where we can't leave our houses. Fun times.
Yeah. I know it's great. I mean it's been overcast for the like a good bit here. It's like just now starting to warm up, and I think like it'll hit the 90s in the latter half of this week, which I might be able to actually utilize the pool here, so that
Nice.
might make things a little better. I have no idea, but it's just same old, same old.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, for us, we have a neighborhood pool that they have a big, gigantic sign in front of it saying, don't come in. And there's like a chain around it and everything. We went for a little walk and walked up to it. I was like, this is dramatic. This is a little bit over the top what you're doing right here. But I guess,
hmm
there's no shortage of dumb people out there. So it probably makes a little bit of sense to do all of that. All right. So for today's show, we've got a bunch of subjects to cover. A lot of it, once again, about movies being delayed, things being canceled, some interesting kind of stuff in here. I'll just kind of give you the rundown real quick. We got some updates on Venom. It's been delayed, and we have a title. Scoob is going straight to VOD. Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con is officially canceled. We have a whole new set of DCEU movie dates. Justice League Dark is being heading to HBO Max with from Bad Robot and J.J. Abrams. Lovebirds finally has a release date. You have seen Extraction, so you're going to tell us about it. And Georgia is thinking about reopening their movie theaters. And so that'll be a fun discussion about why and what are they going to show. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it'll be a great discussion about how not to run a state.
very, very bizarre decisions that some people make. Anyway, if you guys are listening to the audio version of this, be sure to leave a review and a rating on wherever you listen to podcasts. It does help us out in these early phases, this first 21s, trying to get momentum for the podcast as we're kicking things off. It would be appreciated. But also, so you know, this is being recorded live straight to YouTube. So I will be taking some feedback from people in the comment section as we go through this. And for those of you watching live at the end of this, once we close off the audio version with our main topics, we will do some Q&A. So if you got a bunch of questions unrelated to our subjects at hand, just hold them to the back end, and we will take a whole bunch of your questions there at the end. And one final disclaimer before we get started talking about our Venom news is that YouTube changed up their settings and stuff. So if you send in a super chat, I might miss it. There's some ways that I used to track that to make sure I didn't miss anything, and they changed things up, and so I don't know how to find those anymore as easily. So there's a chance I'll miss things. I'm very sorry if that does happen. And let's get started. So I believe it was yesterday we got both the announcement that Venom is being delayed and that we have the title for it. What was Bring on the Carnage?
Let there be
Let there be
carnage.
carnage. They
Let there be carnage.
of all the titles, I think it acknowledges their own self-awareness that things are they have an awareness of their place in the world of comic book movies. But so let's talk first about the fact that the delay happened. So some people are surprised by this because they're like, wait, won't movie theaters be opened back up by October? Like, I don't understand. Why would you push the movie? Are you really thinking we're not going to have movies for that long? And I don't think that's exactly what this is. What I've been saying on these podcasts for weeks is that there's just going to be a massive reshuffle of everything. Just everything's going to reshuffle because theaters are closed right now. Production on new movies that are coming next year has been shut down, and you can't go into the studio to finish the movies that are working. So that's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things shuffling, moving around that are going to cause a lot of problems for people. And because of that, I'm just not surprised if anything moves. It's not the October date that's the problem. It's all the other stuff, the trickle down. They're probably going to have trouble finishing the movie because this was a quick turnaround. This was a 2-year turnaround for a blockbuster. That's fast. So right off the bat, they always were kind of running against the clock on that. But then you add to that, everything's shutting down. That's a problem. And if you're a studio and you're trying to move around release dates for the movies that were supposed to come out during summertime, it makes a little bit of sense. Let's just push everything down the road. Let's reshuffle everything for what's best in light of all the information that we have. What do you think about the delay? Did it surprise you at all?
Yeah, it does and it doesn't. I weirdly enough, I think I'm going to be on the opposite side of this of you. I don't think it's that they'll be able to. I don't think it's that they won't finish the film in time, like the post-production thing, because like they've been finished principal photography for a while, and like while there's like effects in the movie, it's like it's pretty moderate when you compare it to like other superhero films. I mean, obviously they'll probably try and do it better in the sequel than they did in the original film, but I mean, still, I think that they're moving it because the Batman moved out of its June slot, which is a story we're going to get to a little bit later on. But like, so the Batman moved out of a primetime June slot next year to October 1st or October whatever of next year. And so I think because the back half of this year is really just overstuffed, full of content. Sony wants to maximize their profits, and they want to release Venom in order for it to hit that $1 billion mark. Yeah. The original film made, I believe, over like $800 million, which is just absurd given the film it is. But and I think
it even
that they
didn't
know
have a big budget. Like that's a great number for the actual budget of that film. This was not one of these $250 million comic book movies, like $100 million. So hitting that $800 million, that close to getting the $1 billion club, there's studio executives that are just in love with Venom.
Yeah, no, I mean, clearly, and I think that them moving it to June, it offers Venom a better chance to succeed because it's not crowded by everything. I mean, obviously, it's got the summer slate that it has to worry about, but like it's also Venom, and so it can kind of hold its own in that space. The other thing is I mean, obviously, production on Spider-Man 3 is going to be majorly delayed. Like, it's not going to come out next year. That's just not going to happen. And so with that film now pushed out of its June or July release slot, like they don't have to worry about competing with themselves there. And so like having Venom open in June gives it a really like long stretch of time to earn a lot of money because people are going to go see it during the summer. So I think it's more of a strategic move in order to maximize profits than it is a move in terms of not finishing the film. Because like even during lockdown, like productions are still like doing stuff. They're still editing and working on effects and whatnot. So I think that's where I kind of land on that.
And in terms of to clarify, I'm not specifically locking in on one theory. My whole thought is there's so many moving parts to all of this. Every studio is just reshuffling for all the reasons you just said of like, okay, this movie was affected for this reason. That opened this up. Therefore, we should. It's all of that stuff. It's the full. So many pieces are moving. So everyone is recalculating, trying to figure out how do I maximize this. And so, I saw some people being like, why would they move this to this date? And I don't understand. It was everyone is thinking, how do we make the most money in this situation? How are we successful with all of this? Everyone is doing that about every single movie. And that's the Scoob conversation. That's everything. Yeah. There's so much new information, so many moving parts, and they're trying to do the best with a really bad situation.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like they've already like moved basically every single film that they were going to have come out this year has been moved to next year. So it's like they're basically they're calling 2020 a wash for them. Like they're just like, we'll just give up and try again next year, which is weird because they're moving like a Kevin Hart movie into October or September or something like that, and it's just like, all right, I guess now the fall is sort of like the dumping grounds for if you don't think a movie's going to make a lot of money, just throw it there, see what happens. Just real quickly, I will say that the title, while it's terrible, you're right, it does have that like hint of self-awareness. So like, yeah, but also you can be self-aware and not have bad titles. So like, I just Let There Be Carnage it's just bad. It's just a bad name. And
so someone asked the question. Crazy Cousin says, "Who do you think is going to be the villain in Venom 2?" The title, I think, says it all. Let There Be Carnage. Carnage is the villain in this film, and I think naturally everyone would think that's a pretty obvious follow-up given the post-credit scene of the previous film. How do you escalate things?
Right.
How do you? But the title, Let There Be Carnage. Okay,
it's just bad.
It doesn't roll off the tongue. It feels like trying to be clever, but not quite landing, which kind of describes a lot of things about the first film. It's just for me. Some people like, am I excited for this movie? I just have so many reservations when it's like a movie that the first one, the script I thought was the weakest part, and then they do a 2-year turnaround, so they don't have a lot of time to like really develop this script to perfection. And then now it's a 2.5-year turnaround, but the script is already done, so they couldn't. If that would be my concern. Didn't really have time to fix that. I love Andy Serkis. I want him to knock this out of the park, both because I would love a good movie and because I want him to succeed at things. But he doesn't have a track record as a director that makes it super easy to just go, oh, of course I can trust him with things like this. And then you look at the title and you go, okay. I just, it's tough for me to get my excitement level particularly high on this one. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I like Venom, the first Venom, probably more than most people, and I acknowledge that is one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen. Like, it is so dumb, but there's like a hint of like cheekiness to it, where like there are moments when you're like, oh no, this movie's a little bit more clever than it's letting on, and I will still maintain, and I still maintain that, but like. Yeah, I don't know. The whole script has to be. All I want is for it to at least be better than the previous one. That's all they have to do, which I know the bar is very low. And I'm hoping with Andy Serkis coming on and Tom Hardy being having a big hand in it, and then having Woody Harrelson be this ridiculous character, that it's. They're going to have fun with it, but it's not going to be like bottom of the barrel trash. Right. And so like, I think at the very least it will be an upgrade from the first film. I just really hope that the studio learned the right lessons from Venom. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Even some of the clunkiness of the script of the last one, I think even went to, they're trying to set up a Spider-Man-less Venom universe.
Yeah.
And so then the normal, natural way to work into the story is not there. So then they're trying to find a way to set up the characters, and it just took so long. And once you had Eddie and Venom together, it was fun. It was goofy fun. And it worked. But that first 40 minutes for me was like, man, we are hitting in a lot of directions. Why is this taking so long? And they don't have to do that this time. They just have... It's set up, so now we just have to. How do we let there be carnage and let him out?
Yeah,
and I think it sets it up a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, and like there've been so many people on the internet who have sort of said this. The name of the movie should have just been like Venom: Maximum Carnage. Yeah. Like just simple. Yeah, I mean Maximum
classic,
Carnage is the name
story. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the name of like a comic arc already, so it's like you can get people excited, like, oh, are they going to take elements from this or not? And then it also rolls off the tongue way easier. It just Let There Be Carnage feels like a studio exec move over at Sony. They're like, oh, let's be cheeky with this one. Let there be carnage, because Carnage is the villain and they're going to fight. And the title, it makes sense. Get it, people? Like, I don't know. So dumb.
So Tom says, if Carnage is done right in this should turn out to be on fire. I think that's probably where a lot of people land is like, if they could do this right, everybody wants not that it would to be like Deadpool, but another like intense, kind of self-aware comic book franchise that's
Hmm.
not aimed for my kids. You know, it's not Disney. That's what I think everybody
No,
wants.
yeah.
And you throw Carnage in the mix, and that just only moves in that direction. So I think everybody get excited about it. We had a super chat from Random Movie Reviews. He said, "Please do your 10 favorite movie trailers as a ranking." At some point in time, I'm sure I'll do that. I'd have to really think about it because movie trailers are tricky ones because you forget about them after you see the movie a lot of the times, and the experience
Hmm.
of the trailer is very different after you've seen the film. Ones that
Yeah.
seemed awesome during the lead up can change really quickly as soon as you see the movie and you go, "Oh, that wasn't so cool after all."
Yeah, yeah, I mean that's true. I just to give an answer for that one, I'd say my favorite trailer of all time is the third trailer for Man of Steel, the one where Zimmer's score is actually
Mhm.
playing in the background. I mean that trailer is a work of art.
Yeah,
It's just spectacular.
yeah, that one. Just between the Zack Snyder imagery and then you get just a little bit of Superman punching people in the face, glimpses of hope. Of course, the score, and you're like, "Is this the real
Hmm.
score? Like, is this where we're really going with this thing?" Dark Knight Rises, I thought was really good. They
Hmm.
had great ones, and then
Yeah.
Phantom Menace is kind of a legendary trailer of getting people just doing its job of getting people amped for more Star Wars.
Yeah.
Next one on here, Scoob is heading straight to VOD at its original
Woohoo.
release date in May. So VOD, video on demand, same thing that they did with Trolls World Tour, is that they're instead of going to the theaters, instead of delaying, they're saying, "Hey, let's drop this one at home." I'm sure it'll be $20 to check it out,
Hmm.
and that's I think this is confirmation that whatever went on with Trolls World Tour, that studios are paying attention. They went, that made money. That's what we're doing. We are
Yeah,
definitely moving in
yeah.
this direction. And not terribly surprising that there's a lot of a one-to-one comparison, similar audiences, similar probably viewing behaviors between Trolls, Scoob, and they went, that worked for Trolls. Let's do it for us too. And likewise, that could mean some sort of change in the industry moving forward. Do you have any
Yeah.
strong thoughts on this? We've talked about it before a little bit. We predicted this a bit.
Yeah, I mean I've ever since they took it off the slate, I've been saying, yeah, they're gonna drop this on like VOD or something like that. So for people who are interested in checking it out, it is $20 to rent, but then you can actually pay $25 and own the movie. So like when it comes out on May 15th or I believe it's May 15th, um it will be available for like families to purchase and own right then and there, which is the smart
Yeah,
thing that Trolls didn't
yeah.
do,
That's why
or
I
really
didn't do
that
it.
Universal didn't do.
That's the
Yeah,
reason that I did not do it. I was like, I can't. I'm not going to pay $20 to watch a movie once, and then if I like it, have to buy it again in 2 months. And so the idea of like
yeah,
having it rent a little bit cheaper, pay a little bit more, like that's exactly what I think that they should do. And
yeah,
it makes it. I mean, Scooby Doo. I was like, oh yeah, I'll check that one out for $20
yeah,
or whatever.
absolutely.
But then as soon as it's like pay $5 more and you own it, it was like easy choice.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's a really, really smart move. And I think they're gonna. I wouldn't be surprised if Scoob did better than Trolls World Tour, just because I think it appeals to a wider audience. Also, the film just looks far better.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I'm actually really excited for this. I thought the film looks cute. It looks like a wacky adventure, sort of like cool getting the origins of Scooby Doo and stuff like that with other like
right.
Barbera like characters coming up in there. And the animation looks beautiful. So I'm really excited for it. I'm happy the film is going to get a proper release on VOD and not just dropped onto HBO Max, where people like have to subscribe in order to see it and whatnot. And like they're gonna be like, no, you guys you can own it. You can just take this one for $25. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And to some of what you said in there, I think Scoob has much broader appeal than Trolls. And some of that's
Yeah.
just personal bias of I wasn't crazy about the first Trolls film, and so then I wasn't very excited about this one. But Scooby Doo, this is a 50-year-old franchise that you have multiple generations factoring into this deal. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that matters. I think that really does matter in getting like me excited for it. Like I have a degree to which I'm like, hey, a new Scooby-Doo film, I'd like to see
Mm-hmm.
that a little bit. I'd like to check that out. And then I have kids that they're the target audience. I mean, they watched 2 nights ago watched the Scooby-Doo and Batman Brave and the Bold movie. Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, they're
yeah,
still
it's fun.
checking all this stuff out. And so they're right in the middle of all of it. And I think that just makes it much easier. And then, like as we've said, the trailers for it just look better. They
Yeah,
look like
yeah,
much better trailers than Trolls 2. Like nothing about the Trolls 2 is like, okay, we've got music. Well, okay. I don't care so much. But I watched the Scoob trailer and I wish they weren't doing aliens. But besides that, I like the tone. I like the look. The humor made me laugh. And me not wanting
Mhm.
them to do aliens, that's just personal preference. That's when I watch the movie, it's I'll judge it on its own merits. I'm just classic
Right.
Scooby Doo is let's go to a theme park and you rip the mask off a ghost and it turns out that it's the groundkeepers. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
aliens, that version of Scooby Doo came after my time. But that's just I'm not the target audience. It is not I'm not worried about that. But
Yeah.
it's
Well, the other thing is like we don't actually know if they're going to be aliens because like maybe it's just going to be a whole bunch of other like Hanna-Barbera characters because that seems to be where like the I guess the intergalactic stuff is coming from is like what's it's like Blue Falcon and some of those characters. So like it could have like a fun little like mask reveal and stuff in there, but yeah, yeah.
just looking in the chat section. Trav Max Fun says, I'm really excited for Scoob, Red Panda. I grew up watching Scooby Doo. Exactly. There, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the one
Mm-hmm.
that if with how well Trolls appears to have done, Scoob, that one could be very interesting to see what these numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
Because man, it just feels so much better marketing, bit broader audience. And I think just using myself as an example, you thinking about even my sister, what my sister would do, she's not gonna
Mm-hmm.
Trolls 2, but Scooby Doo, oh yeah, I'd definitely like to check that
Yeah.
out. So I think it's
Yeah.
gonna do really well. I had a few super chats come in. One from Majestic Demon. Venom to me is the best Taco Bell movie ever made. And I almost said that based off kind of what you were saying in there, Griffin. Taco Bell movie, if you
Mm-hmm.
guys don't know, that's language that I use to refer to movies that I view as kind of cinematic fast food. They're easy to digest. They're enjoyable, but at their core, this isn't fine dining. They're like, they're cooking with a lot of sugar, butter, and grease to make it enjoyable. And so they're
Yeah.
movies that on a certain level, are indefensible, and you understand why certain people hate them. But that doesn't change the fact that you just eat it up. I eat my Taco Bell all the time, even though my tacos are always soggy. So Griffin, like all the language you used to describe it, I was like, I almost interjected like a Taco Bell movie. So Majestic Demon did
Yeah.
that for me.
It's yeah.
And
Yeah.
we had another super chat on Venom from Kevin Hernandez saying Venom 2 is being pushed to next year. Also, is the Batman. Yes, the Batman was delayed. It wasn't delayed by a year, but it was delayed by several months. And as we talked about in our discussion, Griffin speculated that might be one of the reasons Venom moved to that spot because Batman cleared out. And we'll get to that. That's in a couple of our different subjects, but Batman moved as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one more super chat in here from Just Some Porgs with internet access. I didn't even know that they had fingers to be able to type on a computer. But
That's kind of amazing.
what's your opinion on the character Ahsoka Tano? So I've kind of like I have technically watched all of Clone Wars. I haven't watched Clone Wars though. And I'm slowly making my way back through it, and I'm watching the current season with a lot more attention than I previously watched the main body of the show. And so I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of interesting things that they've done with the character. And I think when they started making her more mature and not just kind of Anakin's whiny Padawan, she got a lot more interesting. And then she showed up on Rebels, and once again, it's like they did stuff that was fun with her. The season 7 stuff, I think, is using her to explore stuff in the world of Star Wars that we haven't seen before. And so as soon as
Mm-hmm.
they said that she's going to be on Mandalorian season 2, Rosario Dawson, I am so excited to see that. And some of it's
Yeah.
also, once
Yeah.
again, having a daughter and just having her a character that she can get excited about. That my son gets excited about all kinds of characters, and she loves Spider Gwen and Ahsoka Tano. So hopefully
Mm-hmm.
she can get as pumped about the Mandalorian as my son. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, Ahsoka has really become one of my favorite characters in just all of Star Wars. Yeah, I mean, there was a bit of adjustment period when she was first introduced on the show, but I also think it was intentional because you got to think she's a kid,
Yeah.
right? And so like she's placed in these situations, and so like a kid in these situations is going to be kind of annoying and headstrong, especially when your master is also equally as annoying and headstrong. So like it makes sense, and like seeing her just grow throughout the course of the show, I thought was beautiful. And now like in the final season and everything, it's like she is just an amazingly written character. And I'm so happy we're gonna get more of her in the
Yeah.
Mandalorian and so forth. It'll be cool to see that.
And I those are fun characters for me when you have that person that was in this world and then they left it and they come back in this
Hmm.
other fashion. I think that's really cool. And in
Yeah.
her case, we're going to see her as someone that observed all the events of the original trilogy and then came
Yeah.
back and wasn't a part of that really, or we didn't see her a part of that. So I think that's pretty cool. Okay, Ryan
Yeah.
O'Toole left a comment for us. He says, "Is Sean going for the old man Logan look?" Maybe.
He
Says, "What's
is.
up, boys? Not much, just talking movies." If you guys don't know, Ryan O'Toole is a fellow YouTuber. He's got a channel, he's got a podcast. Good friend of us that I've known him since I started my YouTube channel. Hey, Ryan. All right, next subject at hand: Comic Con 2020 canceled. Comic Con 2020 has officially been canceled. Not delayed, not pushed back, fully canceled. And I think, we kind of knew some big announcement of it not happening in its normal fashion was coming. Fully
Hmm.
canceled feels a bit like not that surprising, really, in light of how bad we're realizing all of this stuff is with the virus, but still feels shocking no matter what to have that big of
Hmm.
a bomb being dropped that it's out. It feels shocking that that's happening, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you think of the things most likely to cause a resurgence of all of this that would lead to a second lockdown, taking 150,000 nerds and cramming them into one convention center
Not a
in,
good
in
idea.
Hall
Yeah.
H in San Diego and then sending them back out to the rest of the world. I mean, that's exactly the sort of stuff that seems extraordinarily likely to cause damage, cause problems. So, of things that to cancel or dramatically rethink for the year 2020, it seems pretty obvious that that's something that probably needed to go. And hopefully they can find some way to do something that can cause some level of excitement. Like I've never been able to go to
Mhm.
San Diego Comic Con, but I was sitting there in my living room during the Marvel panel, live tweeting the whole thing. And just like
Mhm.
the whole thing, retweeting, leave little comments. I mean, it was an event for me just watching Twitter as it happened, like literally
Mhm.
watching
Mhm.
Twitter as it happened, and people just snapping pictures of what was happening in the room. And I hope they can find some way to capture some of that because it's. I don't want to fully lose that, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, this is not the year to bring the whole world together in one place.
Yeah. No, I mean it was never going to happen. Like that's just, and especially in July, yeah, good luck with that. You don't try and escalate things when things are just starting to get better. So like it just, I don't think any big social gatherings like that are going to be happening for the rest of the year. So uh yeah, no, not surprising. It is disappointing. I think Comic-Con is a lot of fun. I enjoy going. The one time I've went, and it was just, you meet some cool people, you see some cool stuff, some great food and like cool parties and whatnot. So it's just, I look at Comic-Con as just like a giant party in a lot of ways. Like it's just, if you've never gone, like I highly like suggest that at any one, like just go and have fun during it. You don't have to be like a journalist or whatever to get into panels. You can just wait in line, or you can like. I think some of my favorite things are just like walking the floor. Just
Yeah.
like going up to the booths and like buying some like cool prints or posters and like seeing the costumes. So yeah, it's gonna suck. But I think something that could happen is like you can see Marvel do like a digital panel online
Yep.
or something like that, which I've seen that idea floated around. I think it would be possible. I don't know if it would 100% happen, just because I don't know if they really need to tease anything, but maybe like a little first look at the Eternals or something. So I don't know. It sucks, but yeah, not totally unexpected.
Yeah. Well, I think, just even like you think a lot of the stuff that they announced last year wasn't necessarily nearly as flashy or as exciting as maybe it could have been because
Hmm.
it's such an experimental phase. Um, but a year later, all these shows more developed, all the new Disney Plus shows. There's a bunch of different trailers, things, footage that they could show to get people pumped. I'm sure they'll have some casting announcements that having that annual time where we come together and they
Hmm.
um announce stuff. Just that rhythm of part of nerd culture. It just feels like a big loss if we don't have that. Neapolitan at a
Hmm.
super chat said, if you could go back in time and watch any movie when it first came out theaters again, what would it be? I would choose Endgame. So of ones that I saw in the theater, ones that I actually saw in the theater, I think Endgame is a pretty obvious front runner to see that opening night with a packed, pumped theater. That was something special that you'll never
Hmm.
recapture what happened in those theaters when Captain America has that hammer in his hand. That's when the portals start opening.
It's just,
That's a
yeah,
special
that
moment.
was, yeah.
And so for ones, however, that I wasn't there for, and you weren't there for, you think
Hmm.
what to actually experience. No, I am your father in the theater. Empire Strikes Back. I mean, I have no clue what
Right.
that experience being in the theater was because I just always kind of had that information. I always kind of grew up with it or saw it on home video with my parents or something like that. It's not the same thing. Do you
Hmm.
have any other ones that would come to mind for you?
Um, I mean, I think it would have been really exciting to see Jaws in the theater,
Mm-hmm.
especially living at a time that isn't like oversaturated with just like different kinds of media. Like in the 70s, you watch a film like Jaws and like that, you don't have like a bunch of memes on the internet kind of like ruining it for you. It's just like you see that movie, you're terrified, and now you literally will not go to the beach anymore. And so
Yeah.
it's like seeing some of those films would have been like interesting. I mean, obviously the return of not Return of the King, but well, yeah, I guess Return of the King, like the Lord of the Rings films, I didn't see those in theaters, so like that would have been really fun to like experience
Yeah.
some of those moments in theaters. Yeah, I mean those are really the only ones that come to mind. I can't really think of anything else, but
All right, quick comment in the comment section. Bob Joe asks, "What happened to the guest appearances?" Nothing. I just haven't had any. I've been experimenting with live streaming. I've sent some emails out to some people. I have been working on it. It's not entirely. The reason I haven't had any guests the last few weeks is just because I wanted to figure out live streaming, and it seems to be working. Seems to have gone well. Hence why I can even answer your question. And I've messaged some people. It just hasn't come together yet. So I'll even if I just have someone on that we had before, I'll do my best to have someone on next week and maybe experiment with a 3-person live panel next week if my computer
hmm.
can process that much stuff live happening um, on camera. So anyway, next subject at hand: DC movies. DCEU has shuffled all of their release dates. They are now officially kind of moving it all around. So I'll kind of go through these real quick. Wonder Woman is now August 14th of this year. The Suicide
Hmm.
Squad is August 6th, 2021. The Batman is October 1st, 2021. Black Adam is listed for December 22nd, 2021. And The Flash, June 3rd, 2022, which we'll get to that one. That's interesting in light of the news from a couple weeks ago. And then Shazam 2, November 4th of 2022, and Aquaman 2, December 16th, 2022. So, as we've already said in this particular um, live stream, as well as previous ones, um, you know, I'm not surprised by these massive reshuffles. This is what I've been expecting. So it's no real surprises here. The one that was most interesting in all of this, because most of it's like, I just don't really care. I just expected. The Flash moved up a month. The Flash was supposed to be in July, and they moved it to June 3rd. And so 2 weeks after, weird incident with Ezra Miller, puts his hands around a girl's throat that he doesn't know, puts her on the ground, and there wasn't a follow-up from him or anything that had clarified it. Like, no, it was a misunderstanding. It was a joke gone wrong. Like, there's nothing like that. And so it's just sitting out there as, did he just assault someone? And then we're just like, moving on.
It just, what the heck? Like, how does that just get swept under the rug?
Yeah.
Like, that blows my mind.
And so then follow that up with then that the movie moves up. And I had some, like, I tweeted out with the headline, I said, so I guess Ezra still has the job? And a bunch of people responded to me kind of like, well, why wouldn't he have the job? Or it's easy to replace a lead actor, or, you know, at any point in time, you can just cast someone new. So why wouldn't they announce the date? I mean, they're just announcing it. I was like, well, you don't normally move your release date forward if you don't have a plan in place. Like, you move your date forward if everything is ahead of schedule. And if you're like, hey man, I know you've had this part for 5 years, but you're crazy. You're fired.
You're kind of a terrible person.
You're a bad person. Then you don't move your date forward if you're still trying to figure that stuff out. Especially with everything moving around, you don't make the date locked in until you have locked in your lead actor. And, you know, people are like, well, we don't have all the information and we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Like, right. I mean, I'm tracking with you. I don't like to jump to conclusions. But when something like that happens and he doesn't say, hey, it was a misunderstanding, or he doesn't like, here she is, I apologized, we're cool, when there's nothing, that's a problem. Because, you know, somebody even tweeted at me like, well, you know, how do you know it wasn't just his friend? Like, sure, I mean, it could have been. But if it was, around the time that there was 1,000 articles about how he's a bad person, he would be like, hey, it's just my friend, we're right here. See, we're good. It was a joke gone wrong. Like, you just can put that fire out really easy if it's a fire that's easy to put out. However, if the situation is that some rowdy fans were not respecting his space, and he responded by, like, putting his hands on her throat jokingly, but he actually did it, and then takes her to the ground, there's not an easy way to explain why the star did that. Like, not that he hurt her, but you can't do that. That's not like, you're not allowed to do things like that. And so
it doesn't matter like what kind of context it's in. It just doesn't like look bad. And especially when like the reports like come out, or sorry, it doesn't look good. Yeah, sorry. Especially when the reports come out, and they're like, no, this was not like a friend. This was someone who was clearly assaulted by him. The guy sucks. He's just a big old, he's got some serious issues that he needs to clearly take care of. I can't see him staying on. I've always said I can never see him staying on this project. And until the movie actually gets released with Ezra Miller as the Flash, I don't think that he will be the Flash. So and this just makes me think that even more. So I don't know.
Well, and one of the things we talked about a couple weeks back was that it's not like he's the big star power here. I mean, he had a couple of these little cameos in a couple things, and then Justice League. But it's not, that movie wasn't well received. It's not coming off Avengers and being like, now we're going to recast whoever, Hawkeye or whatever, Black Widow. It's not that. It's coming off a movie that was not well received. There were a lot of criticisms that are pretty valid of the way they treated the character. Some people liked his sense of humor, but like I went to a Comic-Con here in Austin that John Wesley Shipp was at. John Wesley Shipp played the Flash on the Flash TV show in 1990. Mark Hamill was on the show. Danny Elfman composed the music for it. So that's I saw that opening day, or not it wasn't theatrical. When it debuted on TV, like I watched it. I actually pulled out I was like, Dad, I need to record this. He goes, here, record it on this. It was actually a copy of my mom's copy of Flash Dance. She recorded on TV, and so I recorded over Flash Dance with the Flash. And so that's the 1991. So the star of that, John Wesley Shipp. So he was the original live action Flash, and he's been doing the Comic Con thing this all along. He's on the new Flash series, very good with fans, and did a panel on it. And someone asked, "Hey, what did you think about Justice League?" And he's like, Ezra Miller, I think he did the best that he could with the material and did some funny stuff, and it's amazing what they could do with special effects. But in that movie, every opportunity they could, they played the Flash for a joke instead of as a hero. Mm-hmm. And so then he's afraid to fight people. So he's like, I just push people out of the way. And then, he trips and falls on Wonder Woman's boobs. And then in the finale,
some weird, And
it's just like these jokes that it's like, we've tried to move past doing jokes like that. And then in the finale, he's like, what can I even do? I don't even know what to do. And they're like, just run that way and save some people. And he does the one thing they ask him to do. And then immediately they cut to, oh, you saved 3 people? Superman saved a full building. And so even when they used this version of the Flash, they undermined him throughout their stuff. And that's, like I said, that wasn't just my take. That's the take of John Wesley Shipp publicly stating, come on, guys, why would you do that to the Flash? If finally put him in the movie in the lead, and you played him for jokes. And so it's not like there's any reason to be particularly tied to him either, I don't think.
No, not at all. I actually hated his portrayal, first of all. I've never been I've never liked this casting. I've always thought it was the weirdest thing ever, and the movie did not give me cause to believe that it was a good choice. And then on top of literally everything else about him just not being a good person, and then just fucking choking people, get someone else. There are plenty of people who can play the Flash. In fact, there are probably a million unknowns that could do it probably better than Ezra Miller. So
we got a couple super chats come in. Max Shapiro says, the worst thing your favorite actor has ever done. Worst thing my favorite actor has ever done. Well, I normally say my favorite actor is Sylvester Stallone. So I don't know if you're saying worst action that they did, or if you're talking about worst movie. So worst movie did Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And apparently some of that, where that came about, was because they were trying to get Schwarzenegger to do it. Schwarzenegger didn't want to do it. And so then he basically baited Stallone by telling him he was thinking about doing it and whether he should or shouldn't, and tricked Stallone into doing Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which ironic as a very offshoot on that, the guy that wrote this famous screenwriting book called Save the Cat, that people talk about in screenwriting worlds, and the guy in the book talks about, I have sold a bunch of scripts. One of the 2 that he sold 2 that were produced in actual movies. One of them was Blank Check, and the other one was Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And this is the guru that was super famous screenwriter guy. Anyway, if you're talking about things that he did that are in the more literal sense, I mean, the guy's been on steroids for 40 years and kind of lying about it. And, hey, you can't look the way that he looks in his 70s if you don't spend an enormous amount of time in the gym. He's done the work. He's done the work. I'm not denying the work.
Yeah.
But in his book, do I even have it right here? I don't have it right here around me. But in his book, he talks about when he was training for Rambo 3, where he's probably him in his peak, just no body fat and just the thickest muscles, the best ratio of muscle to no body fat. And he literally wrote in his book, well, I was on this amino acid that's 8 times as powerful as normal amino acids. And, I was taking that. And I was like, no, you weren't. That doesn't exist. You just lied about being on an amino acid. What's the name of it? Why won't you name this amino acid? Can I take 8 of these pills? And that's not a thing that exists. And if it did exist, everyone would know what it was. And if it got the results of 8 times the normal amino acid, it would have the consequences. Thus, it would also still be a banned substance because it would have the consequences of the banned substance. So, everybody knows he's been on steroids and HGH, for decades, and he's never fully been honest about what exactly is going. Because you get Schwarzenegger said, "Oh yeah, we did steroids back in the 70s. They weren't banned." He said that. It's not a secret. Stallone, however, I think because he's got little guy syndrome, because Schwarzenegger outweighs him by 50, 60, 70 pounds. Schwarzenegger is a legitimate, actual massive person. And Stallone is a little guy in great shape. Like he's not a big guy at all.
No,
I
no.
mean, like 5'9", but really muscular. And like in Rocky 3 and stuff like that, he's like 160 pounds. Like not a big guy. So I think,
Yeah.
a little bit of little guy syndrome going on in there. So anyway, I don't know if that's where the question was going. How about you? Do you have one that's worst thing that your favorite actor has ever done?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking in the literal sense, he's not my favorite actor, but I used to be a big Kevin Spacey fan.
Most all of us were, and
And that ended promptly after the info about him came out.
and his response to it.
Oh
Like
God.
everything that he's done since kind of being outed as not a good guy. Like literally, someone the guy from Star Trek Discovery puts this interview and he's like, yeah, he assaulted me when I was underage, and Kevin Spacey's like, yes, I am gay. Wait, no, wrong time, buddy. Like
Yeah.
everything about that response right there is like, what are you doing? And then he puts out like these creepy videos as his character from House of Cards.
It's
Like,
what are you
things
doing?
aren't as
Like,
they
what
seem.
is? It's so weird. But I mean, like other than that, I mean, like Leonardo DiCaprio is probably my favorite actor. It's not like he's done anything bad, but he's like dating a girl that's like younger than me, and he's
Right.
like pushing 50, I guess you could say. So it's just that's a little weird.
And that stuff it just does not sit well in the
Yeah.
post Me Too world, where it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The whole
I
movie
mean,
stars, rock stars going after
yeah.
college age girls and stuff like that. Immediately you're like, oh, this is, you can't just excuse this because they're pretty. Like that's exactly what part of why this is really unsettling.
Yeah,
And
for sure. And like I feel like there are cases where like it's not the end of like it's not a big deal. Like I think the Florence Pugh and like Zach Braff one, a lot of people like get irritated about that, but like she's old enough to make her own decisions. She knows what she's doing and that and whatnot.
And it's that kind of almost the fame dynamic too. Right now,
Yeah.
she is kind of more famous than he is. Like long term, he has a much
Yeah,
longer legacy. But when it comes to like the ups and downs of fame, like she's like riding really high on this wave of fame, and that is like a really important dynamic when it's like, are you just banging a groupie or are these two adults? And it like my first reaction to him dating her, like I definitely immediately go, that's pretty young. But also when you're in the world of movie star fame, that's a different world. And two movie stars
Yeah.
dating each other is not the same thing as 45-year-old man dating random girl that just got out of college.
Yeah,
Those are not the same thing. They're not in the same world.
thing.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons that one of those is like, movie stars are kind of gross. And the other one is like, hey, okay, like my wife's best friend made honor at our wedding. Her husband's 20 years older than him, and she's a couple years younger than me, and they've been married for about 5 years. So when they first started dating, she was in her 20s and he was about 50, and immediately it was like, okay, this is kind of weird. And she's like, they knew that too. Normal people know, like, yeah, that's a pretty big age difference. And like he'd been married before and had kids that were literally just a few years younger than her. And that's obviously kind of weird. It's different.
Yeah. There's
If you know it's weird, then it's cool. Anyway, we're talking about relationships a little bit too long here. Next one we'll talk about.
Someone did put in there. They were like, I wonder what the worst thing Robin Williams did, and I was just like, oh, well, do we want to go down that rabbit hole?
Let's not. Let's go down that one. Real quick, talking about this one. Justice League Dark deal has been signed for Bad Robot, and was it for HBO? The HBO Max? Was it for?
Yeah, HBO Max. Yeah.
And so it's being reported as J.J. Abrams is developing. I believe it's Bad Robot.
It is Bad Robot developing. I don't think J.J. Abrams is like directly involved.
Exactly.
I think he's just producing.
And that's a big thing to know about. A lot of times, J.J. Abrams is a more famous brand than Bad Robot. Though Bad Robot is a very famous brand too. But everybody
Yeah.
knows J.J. Abrams because obviously Star Trek, Star Wars, and an enormous amount of very successful television. And so his production company is Bad Robot. And so when a lot of times when they're trying to get excitement for a Bad Robot new project, they say J.J. Abrams is developing this because he's listed as an executive producer on all of these. And he's given a lot of the he's given way more credit and blame on Bad Robot Productions than he deserves. And so people are like, he didn't know how to end Lost. I mean, he had very little to do with Lost after like the beginning. Like he launched it and directed like the pilot, I believe. And then that was all the other, Damon Lindelof, all those other guys kind of ran with it. Like he's just the guy that runs a production company and he's giving advice to these shows. So this is not, do not take this announcement that J.J. Abrams is directing, writing Justice League Dark for HBO Max. That's not what this means. Yeah. It does mean it's Bad Robot, and Bad Robot has a very specific vibe to them. They have a brand. They have, and I love their brand. So much their TV I have a massive fan of. But to be clear, it's more Bad Robot, I'm pretty sure, than J.J. Abrams. How about you? Yeah. Immediate thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I just find it funny how he makes the Rise of Skywalker and then continues to fail upwards. But that's a conversation for a later time. I don't hate the idea of Bad Robot doing Justice League Dark. I don't want J.J. Abrams to be anywhere near it creatively, personally. I think there are other voices that are far more interesting to tackle that material. What could be good is if they got like the guy who did Overlord or some of the people involved in the Cloverfield films to get involved with Justice League Dark. I think that could be really interesting. I am disappointed we're not going to see like Guillermo del Toro's vision. I just was that was like a match made in heaven, and it gets me that would have gotten me really excited. But it'll just be cool to see Justice League Dark in general. Do you think they'll keep Matt Ryan as Constantine?
I wouldn't think so. I can't see them wanting to tie over to Arrowverse. I can't fathom what benefit would be to them to tie themselves to that continuity. So I would think that they'd want their full control, and even kind of elaborating kind of what you said up. Got the impression you might not be the biggest JJ fan right now. But if you look at the other talent that Bad Robot has consistently attracted and been a part of their stuff, is it, the original Cloverfield, Matt Reeves, Person of Interest, Jonathan Nolan, and it is Westworld under Bad Robot?
Yeah, Westworld is under Bad Robot,
And you can kind of go through their history, and, Damon Lindelof did, for a long time, the internet hated him, but then he did Watchmen last year, and they like him more. But there's they get some very interesting auteur creative people that have a vision, and they get to do interesting stuff with it. As if they're on CBS, they're limited a little bit, but if you're on HBO, they let you go pretty crazy. So even if you are kind of cynical towards JJ, as I said, I don't think that JJ's going to be the guy that's doing a whole lot with it. They're just using his name because everybody knows his name more than Bad Robot. And they probably will get someone very interesting to have some fun with it. But I can't see this one being tied to Arrowverse and stuff like that. Because, there's just no... I'm pretty burnt on Arrowverse.
For sure. I could see Matt Ryan making the transition over, just because he made the transition from his show to the Arrowverse. I'm sure that he could leave the Arrowverse and just go on to be in Justice League Dark, and then not have people think twice about it. He kind of has that attachment to the character that I guess Charlie Cox does in a way, where it's I could see them keeping Charlie Cox on and putting him in the MCU, but removing the baggage of the series. It would be weird, but I feel like it could make sense. So I don't know. I really like Matt Ryan in the role.
And I haven't watched the TV show. I've seen
it's not great
in the other stuff. So maybe I could see it a little bit better if I had that point of reference, but.
Yeah. I just want him to get a fair shake at the role, because the show was plagued by many issues, and it was also censored for network television, which just, why would you put Constantine on network television? So,
got a super chat question real quick. Neapolitan, Mr. Sean and Griffin, if you had to choose any franchise that either needs a reboot or desperately needs a good movie, what would you choose? So, what would we like to continue? Either with a reboot or I guess throw a sequel on that one. One we've been talking about is Rocketeer.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah, man. Yeah.
So if you guys don't know Rocketeer, it's a Joe Johnston film from the very early 90s, and it's based off a comic book, and so it has the vibe of kind of those throwback serial adventures like Indiana Jones. Joe Johnston came from Lucasfilm, and so it very much has that tone vibe. Great score from James Horner. Timothy Dalton is the villain, and it's on Disney Plus, and so I definitely recommend checking out. Like, that's one of those movies that I saw when it came out in theaters, and then went to Disney World that same summer and got my picture with the guy in the costume and everything like that, and they had the stunt show, and so that's one that just seems like an obvious one that you could do more with, especially with modern technology. And it's an underviewed film, so whether you wanted to do some version of a remake, reboot, or anything with that, I think that's an obvious contender for one.
Yeah, I think I almost think at this point you'd have to do a reboot, just because all the people originally involved with it are too old.
Did you watch The Killing?
The show?
The show with Joel Kinnaman?
No, I don't think I did.
So Bill Campbell, the Rocketeer, he's on it.
Yeah.
He looks.
Really?
He's very prominent. Like, he's one of the main cast on it. Because you have the two investigator people, and that's Joel Kinnaman and the lady, and then you have kind of this politician plot line, and he's the politician, and that run through the first two seasons. So he's very involved in it. As of when that show's on, he's looking great. Considering,
really?
Maybe after 55, age caught up with him or something like that, but he's still looking good. Anyway, but even if you were to do that, be set like the Rocketeer 1960. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
it would be a little interesting. So I feel like Alan Arkin,
But all that to say, he actually is looking pretty good. But a bunch of Alan Arkin, some of the other people, and Timothy Dalton. Well, Timothy Dalton. I don't want to spoil anything on that point, but Alan Arkin is in his 80s now.
No, you definitely. Well, it would be nice to see just Jennifer Connelly again in something, literally anything.
Yeah, Jennifer Connelly. You forget, she's kind of the love interest in it, and she's 50 now, but she still looks fantastic. And then Jan from The Office is in it singing as a lounge singer. There's so many little nice touches about the Rocketeer. Is there another one you would reboot? You have a quick one?
I wouldn't reboot it, but I say this every time I get the chance. I just want a sequel to Tron Legacy. Okay. I just I love that movie so much, and I think that it left the story off in a place where I just want to see it continued with Joseph Kosinski directing. So it's kind of funny though, because that's also based off of this weird underappreciated, underseen 90s Disney. Well, it's not even 90s. I think it was 80s, right?
The original Tron is about 1980. Yeah, that's 1980. Yeah, that's beginning of the 80s.
Yeah. But different from the Rocketeer, but kind of similar in how it's just it just kind of flew under the radar.
So moving along to our next subject here, this is going to be real quick. Lovebirds gets a release date on Netflix. So this was a movie supposed to come out in theaters, supposed to debut at South by Southwest, which we were going to be at, and then the whole world collapsed. And so then it got acquired by Netflix, and so we now have a release date for it in May. Probably not too much to comment on that. For me, I'm looking forward to it. I'm still on kind of it seems like comedians, a new comedian comes out every few years, and then they put them in a bunch of different stuff, and whether you like them or not, they put a bunch of movies with them out really quickly. Kumail seems to be one of those guys that he's just showing up in a bunch of different stuff, in small roles and bigger roles, and in comic book movies, jacked. And I am totally on the Kumail Nanjiani kick. Men in Black last year, he was the best part of it. I really enjoyed Stuber. And so I was just excited for this one, and I think streaming is probably a better place for it. Where it'll do better, because people don't go out to the movies to watch films like that as much. So you put it on streaming, you go, oh look, a comedy of Kumail Nanjiani, and I forget the girl's name, but I believe she was she in Little?
Oh, Issa Rae.
Yeah, and she was in Little last year, and I thought she was the best part of that movie. And so then putting them together just seemed like a lot of fun. So I saw the trailer, I was like, all right, I'm totally the audience for this movie. I have a date night with my wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think at the very least it'll just be, fun, just fun, light entertainment and whatnot. I really like Issa Rae's show Insecure on HBO. Yep. She's great in that. And then I mean, Kumail he's one of the hottest talents right now, and for good reason. The guy has a lot to offer, and he's very versatile. And this looks like, it's him doing what he does best with a great, co-star. So I'm all for it. I think it could be a lot of fun.
So next thing we're going to talk about today is that there is a new Chris Hemsworth movie coming out this Friday on Netflix. It was written by one of the Russos. Both of the Russo brothers produced it, and then it's directed by kind of like a really famous stuntman, second unit director. I haven't seen the movie yet, but my understanding is that you have. If you could give us your 1 minute take on Extraction.
This movie is freaking amazing. It's so good. It's weirdly enough, I think this might end up being just like the summer surprise blockbuster of the season, just because there's literally nothing else coming out, and it's going to fill that void nicely. I don't think Chris Hemsworth has ever been better. He's doing a lot of physical work here, but then also he brings the emotions when he needs to, and he brings it in a way where it elevates, pretty surface level stuff on the page. Mm-hmm. The action is unbelievable. You're going to see this comparison a lot, but it's like you take the gun fu and the really like elaborately choreographed action from the John Wick series, and you combine it with the intensity and the ticking clock of like a Black Hawk Down. Mm-hmm. And you get Extraction. There is one sequence in the middle of this film. My jaw hit the floor just because like you think it's starting out as one thing, and then it transforms into something completely else, and then it goes into something completely else. And it's like it's just an absolute display of like master craftsmanship. And so like Netflix needs to be.
Oh, I might be back. It looks like I'm streaming, but I don't know what I'm streaming to. So if you technology, it's amazing. So if you're wondering what just happened, where I went, there's a okay. All right. I think we're good. I think we'll be back. Can you see me? You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody,
I'm good.
Everybody, if you don't know what just happened, if you're still sticking in there with us, thank you much for that. We I think we're back, and technology actually saved us a little bit.
Yeah.
So what happened? There's a rainstorm outside my house, and lightning struck, and the power went out at my house for only a couple seconds. But because of that, internet was lost, and but we still stay connected. So in theory, I don't know, make something of that. But all right. Where I lost you was you saying that this is the type of movie that you want Netflix to do more of.
Yeah, I mean, just these really like intense, compact, adrenaline-filled action movies that are like they're quality films. They're like really well made, and it doesn't, Netflix obviously they don't need to keep doing action movies like this, but like they're definitely putting their money in good hands here, because you can see every cent of the budget fully realized. Sam Hargrave is. I want to see whatever this guy does next. He's just he's gonna be a force in the action department. You're gonna love this, man. Like, if this is not your favorite film of the year by the time you watch it, then you're not. Your name isn't Sean Chandler, quite frankly. So
I like the sound of that. All right, we had a couple super chats come in. I got nervous because people asked super chats, and I was like, "Oh no, we're not on the internet anymore." So someone said, "What would you say to a rebooted Smallville?" I don't know what there is to add with Smallville. I don't know what, if you did it now, you get that you didn't get before. I mean, the special effects are dated on the original, but the stuff on Arrowverse is dated too, because on a TV budget you can't do what you really want to do. So I think it needs more time, and I wouldn't necessarily want Smallville again. I would want some other interpretation of Superman. And it wouldn't be like, let's do Smallville again, where for 10 years we tell the origin story of Superman. That's not what I would choose to do. As much as I had fond memories of the show, that's not the direction I would go. And we had another one. Azim, the Dreamer Review, says, you want to see, or what do you want to see in Jurassic World Dominion? Okay, so on this question, last week you guys asked us, had we watched the Jurassic World Battle at Big Rock or whatever it's called. I watched it last night, and I really dug it. I don't remember. Had you said you seen it?
No, I had no.
Okay, so basically it's a family out camping, and then two dinosaurs start fighting in front of them, and then one of them turns on the camper. And so it's just like a scene that you would see in a Jurassic Park movie, directed by Colin Trevorrow. And just pretty cool, and it gives it a little tease of the dinosaurs are out there. They don't have them contained yet. So what can we do? It just gives a little bit of that. And then what it does what's even more fun is that it ends by having basically a set of these found footage type videos of people doing normal things, and then a dinosaur like jumps in front of them. And so it's kind of like what you would see as news footage of, like, the dinosaurs are starting to show up. And so the dashboard cam footage of someone driving down, one of these windy roads in California. And then suddenly there's a stegosaurus right in front of them, and they have to like veer out of the way. And like wedding footage where they release doves, and then pterodactyls come in and grab them. And so that, I mean, as to the question, what do I want to see in the next Jurassic World? I probably that sort of thing of,
yeah, same. Yeah.
Just what it would be like if these dinosaurs got out there, and you're trying to both not make them go extinct, but you're also like, we can't go extinct. We can't let this get out of control. And so then this urgent story to try and stop the spread of these dinosaurs or something like that, or whatever that would look like. I think the normal life aspect, that not doing San Diego from the Lost World that just kind of comes off like a Godzilla movie, but actually dinosaurs got loose on the mainland. How do we respect them while not dying?
Yeah, I agree.
All right. And our final subject of the day, final official subject of the day, is Georgia is planning to reopen their movie theaters very soon. Like in the next couple, like May 1st or something, they want to reopen their movie theaters. Which, I mean, there's the side to it that you just kind of go, that doesn't seem like a very wise decision. Just obviously, no, you probably shouldn't do that. But more importantly, what are they going to play? Where are they going with this?
I know. And it's like, it's not even their theaters. Like, they're opening up like nail salons and like hair places and, other stuff like that. They're trying to phase in a sense of normalcy, and it's just too soon, quite frankly. I mean, I understand like states have like, plans in place, but like, this is just not okay by any stretch of the imagination. Like, it's just like, this is bad. It's going to affect a lot of people. And it shows that they don't know how to run a state, and they don't care about those who are going to be most affected by it. Because, I mean, it goes like beyond the movie theater thing. Like, you're right. What are they going to play? Like, it's just, there is literally no point. I guess they could play old movies, but like, a state opening up theaters isn't going to, rejuvenate the cinematic market or
Right.
whatever. It's just it's irresponsible, and it clearly comes from a place of not taking this thing seriously. Or worse, it's, they don't want to shell out the money for unemployment. You could look at it that way, and all the people who are suffering from not having a job. So it's not good.
Yeah, it's a weird time we're in. Yeah. And I think there's a side to it to where if you're in LA, and especially if you're in New York City, your perception on things is very different because you know people. If you're in New York City, you know people that have died. If you're in LA, you know a bunch of people that have contracted it. If you're in the main section of the country, you probably don't know anyone. And so it's all TV news. And it's stuff that you don't like factor it in. And so you think, oh, well, that's a big deal there, but it's not a big deal here. It's like, but that's because it hit there and everywhere shut down, and therefore it didn't. Like that, it's a lot more complicated than these kind of single variables. I don't know anyone that has this, therefore we're okay. Like, it's
it's selfish, yeah,
and it's short sighted, and so there's a lot of things to factor into it, and I think anyone that's not like you have to be thinking long term of the consequences to the economy. You have to think about that, but that's not the same thing as like, let's get this as quick as possible. Like you really have to think about, it's a very complex situation that should not rush any direction. Anyway, so what close out on some recommendations. What have you been watching recently and that you would recommend people check out? What have you been watching while locked at home?
Well, go watch Extraction this Friday. That, I think a lot of you are going to really enjoy that. It's awesome. But other than that, I've been rewatching the Spider-Man movies. We just finished the Raimi trilogy. Going to move into the Andrew Garfield films. I think the only one that really holds up out of those three is Spider-Man 2. The first one is just so dated. And it's like super silly, and Sam Raimi is just, he's almost his style is too much in that film. Whereas like in 2, he kind of tones it back a little bit, and 3 is just a terrible movie. But yeah, no, I've been rewatching through those, so that's been a lot of fun. And I'm gonna be starting on Defending Jacob, that Chris Evans series. I have screeners for that, so yeah.
For me, I have been binging through the TV show Community that's on Netflix now. So it dropped down there about 2 weeks ago, and I'm in the middle of season 3 now. And if you guys don't know, Community, sitcom about a community college that debuted a little over 10 years ago. And if you just heard the synopsis of it, you'd think, okay, just random sitcom. It's not like that at all. And if you even watched the first 12 episodes, you'd think it was one thing, but it's not that at all. And basically, the Russo brothers were like, the creator was Dan Harmon, and then it was the Russo brothers were the two people working with them. So they directed an enormous number of the episodes. Chris McKenna, who worked on the last 2 Spider-Man movies and a bunch of other stuff that you've almost certainly watched if you're subscribed to my channel. He was one of the main writers on it for a while there, and producer, and so won some or was nominated for some Emmys for some of the scripts that he wrote, because they're just so bonkers and crazy, and they just went for it with this show. So that's what I've been watching through, and it's really, as you look at it, the number of how much talent that started on that show 10 years ago, or not didn't start, but were on that show 10 years ago and weren't really A-list names and have gone on to do big, gigantic things since is pretty crazy. And basically, is the final important detail on it is that the Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, watched a couple episodes from the end of season 2 where they did this 2-part paintball episode thing. One of them based on a Western, one of them kind of like Star Wars. They watched that and they went, I want to meet with these guys to see if they could do a Marvel movie. And then it turned out that they went from doing this weird situational comedy about community college to The Winter Soldier. So there you have it. That's my recommendation. Check out Community. The first 12 episodes don't really capture what the show's about. So if you need to skip ahead to the paintball episode at the end of season 1. You'd be like, wait, this is where this show's going? And it'll change your perspective on everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're listening to the audio version, be sure to leave a rating, leave a review, help us out on that. And most of the time, I think we're going to be recording these live moving forward. So if you want to check them out live, Wednesdays, right around lunchtime in Central Time is when we do this. And if you're watching the live stream right now, we're going to keep on going. Griffin, where can we find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me over on the Film Speak channel. I'm putting up a bunch of content over there. You can find my review for Extraction over there. And then you can also find me on Twitter at Griff Schiller.
There you have it. There's today's show, at least the audio version of it. Thank you guys so much for listening, and keep talking movies too much. All right, if you guys are staying there in the chat, we will take some of your questions and answer a few questions for you for a little bit. Once again, if you're wondering why we disappeared there for a little bit, it's because my power cut out. Lightning struck, lost power for a little bit, and we are back. First question in the Q&A here: should Jaws get a reboot? So I think we got this exact question last week. My answer is wildly different this week. Yes, we should absolutely do it. Yeah. We should do it right now. Big CGI. I want the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to star in it, and
as the shark,
and have him fighting Vin Diesel, since they get along great. So I think that what we both said last week is it's a movie that really doesn't make sense to reboot or remake. You remake a story, you reboot a continuity. Either way, it doesn't make sense to bring it back, because what was thrilling in a blockbuster in the mid-'70s is not what's a big blockbuster now. So if you remade it, you can't really add anything to it. There's nothing, you couldn't improve on the story. So all you could do is add to the spectacle of it. And that doesn't make that movie better. And if you do that, what you get is the Meg, Deep Blue Sea. We've seen all of this. We've got that. We've got the crappy 21st century, and they're Taco Bell movies for me. I eat them up. I went to go see the Meg. One of the Austin press screenings was actually out on a lake. Like, we were in tubes floating, and this was like right as I got on the press lists, and like right as I got added, they're like, "Hey, for the Meg, if you might be interested to watch the movie out on the lake in an inflatable with an inflatable screen, would you be interested in doing that?" Yes, awesome. I would love to do that.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And and that's the perfect way to watch a dumb movie like that. And we got to keep the inflatables. Like, I still have them in my garage. And they're actually still inflated. They haven't deflated. It's been 2 years. I love that stuff, but it's not Jaws. It's not the, like, Jaws is actually a great film. It's not just dumb fun. It's a great film with great acting and great characters. And if they did it now, it would have to be this big spectacle film, and it just wouldn't be good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, do you have anything to add to that?
No, yeah, it would be a terrible idea. You just go watch Jaws. It's still as effective today as it was back in the 70s. It's been scaring people out of the water for decades. It's just a good movie. It doesn't need a remake or a reboot or whatever. And like you said, like, if they're gonna redo it, they're like, or not, sorry, if you want to watch an updated version of that, then like go see, I don't know, one of the million other ripoffs that they're doing, like you said, Deep Blue Sea, Open Water, The Meg, like, don't remake Jaws.
All right, got another super chat from Neapolitan. Who do you think is the most overrated actor, and who's the most underrated actor? Overrated? And I want to preface this heavily. I am not saying I don't like this person in movies. I'm not saying I don't understand why they're a movie star. I'm not criticizing this person on anything besides as specifically as an actor. I think Brad Pitt's given a lot of less than great performances, or performances that I just don't buy into. He's given some great ones. He's also given some where I've been like, there's a lot of times where he's talking in funny voices and eating sandwiches and stuff. And like, I'm not arguing with him winning for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's not my point. He has those moments, and then I think he has a lot of times where I don't think we always get that. I think there's been several where, like, I don't fully get some of the praise that this guy gets. That's one that comes to mind that would step on some toes. And then this one's a little bit of a. I don't really like to pick over and underrated because it all depends on your perspective a little bit, but largely Adam Sandler, I think, is underrated himself for the last 20 years. Anybody that saw him in Punch Drunk Love 20 years ago knows that this guy is actually an actor. And then for some reason, he decided to spend 10 years making these Netflix movies talking with funny voices. And, luckily came out of that for a little bit to do Uncut Gems. But, I think movie fans have not underrated him. People that have really watched his filmography, it seems like he has, though. And then people that only know his comedies are like, this guy sucks. He just talks in funny voices and he's 50 now.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Say Adam Sandler for sure, but it's like at the same time he almost does it to himself just because of the projects he chooses to do.
It's on him.
But yeah. I mean, he's definitely underrated. I see where you're coming from with Brad Pitt. I don't think he's overrated. People want him to do a specific thing, and then he goes and does that thing, and I feel like he can get lazy at times. Like he can just fall into the same sort of rut. But like you said, I mean, like the guy can turn in some incredible performances. Like I think Ad Astra, by far the best thing I've ever seen.
Last year was a great year for him.
Yeah,
because it was both like deep performance and cool performance, both of them last year. So I'm thinking of like that Netflix movie he did where he's the general, like 2-3 years ago. And and he's like talking and it, the movie's entirely a Brad Pitt vehicle. And he's like talking with this gruff voice. Anytime he's kind of doing his type stuff, I'm like, I don't buy this. Like, I don't believe that you're that guy. I think I see you acting right now. Whereas when he's Ad Astra, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was like, this is just I see the character.
Yeah.
And so that's some of the stuff to where when I mention it, and like I said, I don't like saying overrated because it's a lot more complicated than that, or underrated. There's a lot of nuances and perspectives that change why people pick which people they think are what.
Yeah, I mean, I always struggle with the overrated one. I mean, underrated, I think Michael Fassbender is underrated or just underused, really.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the one is like, there's underrated and there's underwatched or underutilized. Because like most people know Michael Fassbender's great. And then it's like, he doesn't do all that much, and he's in a lot of bad projects. And, it doesn't seem like he's done all that much as long as we've been doing YouTube. And he has done stuff, but he just hasn't done a lot that's really kind of brought attention to him in the last 4 years. And so it's tricky to like, what exactly constitutes underrated and overrated?
Yeah, because I would say that Keanu Reeves is underrated in like his ability. People don't give him enough credit for like actually how good of an actor he is, and it's weird because everyone always thinks, oh, he can do action or he's like really stiff and whatnot. He's a very giving scene partner, and I think you see others play off of him incredibly well. So I would say he's pretty underrated in terms of just his ability, as an actor.
All right. True Score 5. Tell us, what did you think of IGN Season 2, Mandalorian Season 2 trailer? I don't remember what the big twist in it was. I watched until the twist happened, and I was like, I'm just not very interested in watching IGN make a fake trailer for a TV show. And so several people messaged me about it, like, you should react to this. Like, I'm not going to react to a fake trailer for a show that this is IGN doing something, trying to be clever. And I can appreciate trying different things, but that does not specifically interest me, for them to, whatever it was. Did you see it?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah. So it's like the first minute of it plays like they're doing a real trailer for Mandalorian Season 2. And then there's like a twist about something funny or goofy that they're doing with it. And so then it's like a one-note joke. So it wasn't something of interest to me, and so I didn't really have strong thoughts on it. I just wasn't also particularly a big fan of it either. Not for me. All right, some names. Some people are mentioning Iron Cap, Brie Larson. She was amazing in Room. Yeah, so like, but it's like people that know that Brie Larson was in the room or seen Room know that she's great. People that have only seen her in the MCU, which is a large number of people, since obviously the massively popular films, they judge her based off of this one thing rather than everything else. That's where that underrated, overrated stuff comes in of like, okay, are we judging this based off popular perception of someone? Are we judging it based off of the loudest people on Twitter? The loudest people on
Yeah.
Twitter will tell you that Brie Larson is the worst actress on the planet. But that's just because they're, it's the way that Twitter works. But anyone that knows kind of her actual resume knows that she's a great actress that has done a bunch of stuff beyond what we were just talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Majestic Demon with the super chat. Thank you so much. Would you consider doing a 10 favorite Disney villains in animated films? Would I ever consider doing that? Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of consider all kinds of things. Anything that people are interested in that I could feel I could make a good list out of, I would look into it. So one like that, I would, if I were to do it, I would probably bring in someone else like my friend Rachel Wagner that's a little bit more of an expert on Disney. Because for me, I know the movies that I know, but I don't know the whole thing. When it comes to Marvel movies, there's like 58 movies. I know the whole thing. Like I've just always been into all of those movies. It's not like that with the 60 Disney animated films for me. So I'd want someone else to kind of join in with me. And it would have to be something that I thought that there was a good bit of demand for. My Disney animated rankings haven't actually done all that well in the past. My ranking of the songs in Frozen 2 did better than my ranking of the Disney movies I did after Frozen 2. And I think some of that's just Disney. People don't know what Disney Revival is, or I didn't necessarily have the best title or know how to get people to watch that one. But I don't know. But anyway, it's possible. Okay, questions. Connor White says, Sean, have you seen The Room? Yeah, I've talked it on my channel. I have some videos where I talk about The Room. Tom English, what do you want to see done in Indiana Jones 5? I want to see them not do it.
I want to see them reboot it.
Yeah, I want. Yeah, that's what I would want much more than. Like there's maybe I could see a pitch with James Mangold doing some deconstruction, call it Henry or something, whatever. But
I think I would actually throw up if that happened. That would be the worst. Like that. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen with Mangold doing Indy 5.
Depressed Indy, everyone around him has died. His sons abandoned him. And he goes on one introspective final journey in the year 1980.
That's not what I want. That's not what I want from Indiana Jones. That is not Indiana Jones. I'm sorry. That is just not okay.
I agree. That sounds amazing, and we should do that. That's where I was musing on Twitter the other day. I watched all the Die Hard movies. And so finally rewatched the new one. Or new one is now almost 10 years old. A Good Day to Make a Bad Die Hard movie or whatever it was called.
Oh God.
And it's weird. But watching all of them kind of back to back, I noticed, or it occurred to me, like he's one of the most famous New York City cops in film history, and he's only in New York City for one of the movies, and he's suspended as a cop, and he's actually just basically a counter-terrorist because the guy's playing games with him. And so we've never gotten to see him as a cop. And so I kind of had that thought of like, and we've never seen like a normal day in his life either. We've never seen,
yeah, that's true.
Like we're told constantly that he's a deadbeat dad, a bad husband, and he's suspended as a cop. So all we ever see him in the movies is as the hero. We see the legend John McClane, and we never see the guy that everyone else interacting with him. We learn how bad of a guy he normally is. And I like that's where I kind of had this thought in my mind of like, I wonder if there is a way to don't do Die Hard 6, where it's like terrorists have done this. You do McClane, and it is like a James Mangold, like John McClane is a New York City cop. It's a detective story, and you get to see a little bit of his actual skill sets, but um, the fact that he's not just, he actually legitimately is a normal guy. Like, what does
Yeah,
that normal guy look like?
that's
Anyone?
interesting.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would work, but if they were to do another Die Hard, I don't want him battling more terrorists or what. That's not the direction to take it. Um, and so I had that thought in my mind. I was like, I don't know if it would fully work, but I do know that Bruce Willis, if he chose to, could make that an amazing movie. Like
Yeah, he
Bruce
could, yeah,
Bruce
if he
Willis
chose to.
Bruce Willis actually decides to act, and he does John McClane as now 65-year-old man that's like about to retire. He's probably doesn't have any savings or whatever. Like, and he's like reflecting on stuff. And you have James Mangold doing a detective story. Like, so he did one of his early movies was Copland, which is about New York City cops that live in New Jersey.
Hmm.
And so you even see where he has kind of that history on some of that stuff. And you do a movie that's a continuation of the Die Hard character, John McClane, and almost like a spiritual sequel to Copland. And like, maybe it's a terrible idea. I'm not sure if I hate this idea or I go, that's really interesting. All right, we got a super chat from Nathan Albers. Hello, Nathan. Nathan is a good friend of mine and has watched many movies actually in this room where I'm filming this right now. You can't watch movies really in it right now, but watched. I introduced him to all the Terminator movies, True Lies, Predator, bunch of all the classics that everybody needs to watch. He says this.
Heck yeah.
I'm watching through Community as well. Aside from the obvious ones like Paintball Episode and Remedial Chaos Theory, curious to know what some of your favorite episodes are. So Remedial Chaos Theory is one where they're have a dinner party at one of the guys' house, at Donald Glover's house, and as they get to a point in time where they have to like roll a die, and they roll it, and as they're doing that, somebody goes, when you do this, you're actually starting 6 different timelines. And so then the episode plays out showing all of the different timelines that could take place. And it's actually 7 timelines that take place. And they get crazier and weirder. And then the episode like closes out with a scene at the end establishing that all those timelines actually do exist. It was brilliant, brilliant stuff. And it was written by the guy that went on to do one of the writers on the last 2 Spider-Man movies. But so some of my other favorites, the billiards episode has always been one that stuck out to me, that I always go back to that one where they seem to kind of like really kind of find the groove of their characters and their sense of humor. And so the lead character, Jeff Winger, takes a billiard class and he refuses to dress out in like weird clothes or a PE clothes for billiards class. And then the teacher's harassing him about wanting to look cool all the time. And so then he shows up trying to look cool in those clothes. And then they have this billiard match and they start just stripping. And it's like, it's weird. And it's that's one that's always like stuck out to me. I forget the name of it, but the one where there's this whole subplot of Abed doing all these crazy weird things in the background including giving birth to a baby. And it's all in the background of the episode. So those are some that kind of come to mind, but the season 1 I felt like had a bunch of great moments, but not necessarily great episodes. Like there's all these super memorable sequences and things that happen in episodes and catchy songs played by bands, but the episodes themselves are just good. And then season 2, they basically made every episode a send up of some genre. And so a bunch of those ones pop out and are super memorable too. So do you happen to have any that are favorites of yours?
I don't think I've seen enough of a show to really like, say what my favorites are and whatnot. I feel like I remember one where they were doing like D&D.
Yeah, they do that's in the season 2 that like they do a whole D&D thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was kind of funny, but yeah, I can't really say.
So a bunch of people are asking me to do how to fix videos on various different movies and projects. That's very much on my mind. So long as they do well, I'll keep pitching them. A lot of people are like, hey, can you do Rise of Skywalker? And the short answer is I plan on making my way through the Star Wars movies on those. So it's on my mind to do all of that. Let's see, questions. Some of the questions you guys are asking are literally things that we talked about. Like someone's asking, like, what are my thoughts on Venom 2? That was the first 20 minutes of this stream, so you can just go rewind this when it's done or look that up. But like that's literally the subject of all of this. Lots of people asking about my crazy beard and hair. Yep. That's what happens when you lock me in a place for a very long time.
Feed him scraps.
Yes, eating cans of soup. Okay, there's a lot of questions being spammed in here, so I'm having trouble finding a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, Usman Rashid, very sorry if I mispronounced your name. What actors have you seen sleepwalk through whole movies? So, of course, the quintessential example of an actor who is great that has just lost their way is Bruce Willis for almost the entire last 10 years. And it's tough to even know what exactly is going on, because it's not just that, he did a Die Hard movie that he sleptwalked through. It's also that he went straight from being in big blockbusters to that same year starring in 3 direct-to-video action movies that all have a title like First Kill and Death Strike. It's all kind of, they're all direct-to-video movies.
Well, he did that Death Wish remake,
He
right?
did a Death Wish remake, and that was like...
It was so bad.
But that would be like some of the best stuff that he's done in the last 8 years. And I mean, legitimately, because I like direct-to-video action movies, but even the ones that he's in aren't the good ones. They're like, it's legitimately just kind of real choppily cut together stuff, and some of it's confusing. Like, did they just shoot some random dialogue and then cut it into a movie? Like, what just happened? I don't understand what I'm seeing. And he literally went straight from he's in G.I. Joe Retaliation to 3 years straight of cranking at 3 direct-to-video action movies. It's not like his career slowed down. It's not like there was a gap there. So why is he doing those roles? Does he have massive debts? Like, I don't... And even if he has massive debts, he's still Bruce Willis. He can still get good roles that just do one good role that you act in, and then immediately it's so weird to like don't know what's going on.
Bad. Yeah, I don't. It's like I would say I feel sorry for him, but like he's choosing to do this. I just feel like he's just not happy with his life, and he just doesn't want to put in the effort anymore, and so he's done. He's just like, well, I need to make money somehow. So,
right, yeah, it's weird. So, and then of course he's also kind of infamous for being like rude, difficult on set. Kevin Smith, who comes off very likable and normal, and is funny, and so he's just told these stories about when he did Cop Out of how Bruce Willis was a nightmare, and he'd been excited to work with him because they played a scene together acting wise in Live Free or Die Hard. And so he's like, oh man, I worked with him and he was great. And then I directed him and he was the worst. and so when you have second soda of the stream, when you have
second soda of the stream,
yeah, can see how long we've been streaming based off the number of sodas that
yeah, yeah.
There we go. I've got a problem. I'm gonna try and get my quarantine 15 gain that weight. But yeah, he's difficult to work with. I've heard that he's bad with fans, and he's like, hey, I did that Die Hard movie 30 years ago. Why is everyone still trying to talk to me on the street about it? Because you're the star of the best action movie of all time. Like, I know, and I would, like, if you feel like you've lost your entire adult life to people asking you about this movie you did 30 years ago, it's very much not just first world problems, but ivory tower in the first world problems. But
yeah.
But it's also like, that's the reality of it, like how we can't really relate to the struggles that they deal with. If you can't go to the grocery store without someone being like, hey, yippee-ki-yay! If that was your entire life, like you can't you can't go and buy guacamole without someone screaming the same phrase at you for 30 years. You start going, okay. That, like, he has bazillions of dollars, but he's lost his, like, normal living. You go, okay, that seems like a real thing. Do you have another actor you can think of that just sleepwalking through?
Who sleepwalks through?
Or a specific performance, maybe.
God, I don't
Jennifer
know. You really
Lawrence
did hit the nail on the.
Jennifer Lawrence seemed to check out a little bit with some of those X-Men movies towards the end
Yeah, I
there.
would say, yeah. I mean, that's the obvious one, her with the later X-Men movies,
Because
but
as an actress, that's not her reputation. But for those movies,
no.
she signed on when she was just starting to be a name, and then the franchise was doing this while her career was doing this, and you could tell that she
Yeah.
seemed to feel that way about what she was doing.
Um, Vin Diesel in just about everything. I don't know. But even that's not fair because sometimes he gives some really compelling speeches about family,
It's true, he
and it
does.
all comes together. All comes together.
Kevin Hernandez with a super chat. What are the movies that ruined the franchise trilogy quadrilogy? So, what are some of those examples of a franchise where like one movie just kind of killed it? For me, Alien 3 just stabbed me in the heart. And then likewise, I mean, I think almost everything that they've kind of done with Alien franchise since Aliens has done things I've been like, I don't like what you're building here. This doesn't make it better for me. So even like Prometheus didn't feel like a good return to form. Beautifully directed, sequences work, but even the mythology that they added, I didn't like it all that much. Some other ones, the Matrix, as soon as the architect shows up,
Yeah.
he's like, ergo, very severe. Like, as soon as that stuff starts, you're like, wait, first off, this is so heavy-handed, so over the top, and you just chopped the legs off of everything that was cool about your first movie. Like that is not a good idea. I'm taking the question as what they did in the sequel legitimately hurt the franchise as a whole. So like, I'm not crazy about the Pirates of the Caribbean sequels, but nothing in the sequels hurts the first movie for me. Because they're just adventures. As like, I don't think this is as fun of an adventure, but it doesn't hurt the mythology. Do you have something come to mind?
Yeah, I think when it comes to Pirates, the only one I think is bad is the fourth one. I really love that trilogy. The fourth one, not great, and then I think they got back on track a little bit with the fifth one. So it's like it's one of those weird things where it's like the five movies as a whole are good, but then you get that weird fourth one before you get to the fifth one. So yeah, that one's a little weird. But I mean, the easy answer for me is Indiana Jones. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is just and there are good ideas in there, but it's just not good.
Well, and it's there's good ideas. There's even good sequences. There's parts of it where you see everything that you loved about the previous ones are still in it. There's just a bunch of stuff that's just not good at all. And it's just as much Spielberg to me as it is Lucas. Lucas had like, hey, I want to talk about aliens and be like a 1950s movie. Okay, that's not a good direction to take this, but okay.
Yeah.
So that's on him. But then even Spielberg was the one that was like, he was the director and he was like, yeah, let's do this green screen stuff. Yeah, let's
yeah, I know.
And that to me, I think is in its own way more damaging because if you did that film in the style of the others, no CGI, none of the CGI stuff, practical effects, instantly it feels like it fits a lot better, and you would shoot certain ideas down, and I think even Lucas's bad ideas would work better. But yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Julia Garcia, what order should I watch the X-Men movies? I would say release order. That's the order that they told the story. There's not really a good order to watch them. The continuity is very broken. And so you're like, just watch it chronological. It would be utter nonsense. It's just nonsense if you tried to watch it chronological. And so I think just release order is the best way to go. If you're digging them, watch all of them. If you're kind of like skittish on it, you can skip X-Men Origins Wolverine, whatever that one's titled.
Oh, just don't even watch that. Just don't. Just don't even bother.
It's true. I mean, they even ignored it entirely. They went, okay, this was a bad idea. I just say watch it in release order. That's normally what I'll say about everything. Release order is the order that the storytellers told it. Therefore, that's kind of the way that they're designed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Caden Brandt says, will you rank the seasons of Dexter? So what I always say about TV shows is they're really tough to rank because I have to rewatch the entire seasons, the whole show, to do one video. So that's 70 hours of watching for one video. And that's a big ask. That's a lot of work for one video and a risk. One possible exception to that would be Dexter. And it's been on my mind for a while. The inherent nature of the show, where each one kind of plays like an individual story, it makes each season more memorable. Like, it makes it so I actually remember the details of it much more so than a lot of other shows, because it's just all so serialized that it plays like they each play like a 7-hour movie. So that one, I think, might be the exception, that if I did just a little bit of research, I could have a fresh enough memory. And I know pretty well the ranking of them just from my experience watching them. And I know which ones I really like and which ones were garbage. So,
I mean, the best season is the one with the Trinity Killer, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Season 4. Yeah. Season 4, season 1 are really good. And then the last season, really bad. The one with Colin Hanks, really bad. And then, all the other ones you kind of shuffle around depending on which things annoyed you about which season. So, some people really didn't like season 5. I dug season 5. I thought it was a good follow up to season 4. It's not season 4, but it didn't need to be season 4. But I think I could rank that one. So that might be the exception, that I just need to sit down and do it. So maybe that'll happen in May. Questions. Some of these aren't even questions. They're just I don't know what's going on in the chat, but it's like lists of titles.
Someone did just send in a super chat. Brian Smith, I think.
Brian Smith. Okay. I'll head on down to that. Okay, found it. All right, ask one from the regular section, and I've got Brian Smith queued up for next. So Brian Smith, you'll be right up. SPC Bird, what is the most underrated franchise? Is this, was I on your podcast a week ago, or not a week ago? Recently, I'm pretty sure I was on his podcast recently. But his name is not his name. So if you head on over his channel, I believe there's an interview with me over there. What's the most underrated franchise?
Gosh, franchise. It's so that's really hard. I mean,
yeah. So I sent it over to you, so that I didn't have to answer.
I know. I mean, I guess Pirates is kind of underrated, from a quality standpoint, because I think especially those first 3 movies, I think are really, really good. But, gosh, a franchise?
It's tough because when you talk about a franchise, the reason that certain ones are underrated is because people don't like some of the movies. So even Pirates of the Caribbean, it's underrated because it has movies that make people go, are you overstaying your welcome? Should this character be the lead? And does this character need someone to play off of? And so I think some of those are legit criticisms. Or you take Indiana Jones, that wouldn't be underrated, but you have the great ones, and then you have some that are really bad. Maybe, and underrated, overrated, as we said before, it's just so tricky because you say maybe the Planet of the Apes franchise is underrated because in certain ways, they're not nearly as big of blockbusters as you would think. Classic, iconic franchise that goes all the way back to the 50s. And then, of course, the new ones are beloved, but they weren't big, gigantic hits. And so if you're talking with people in movie circles, they praise them like crazy. But then as soon as you talk to normal people, they're like, oh, yeah, there were Planet of the Apes movies. It's tricky to exactly define under and overrated. So I don't really have a good answer on that one for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mentioned the Planet of the Apes, this is definitely underrated, just because it never, and not just the Matt Reeves trilogy, that entire series of movies, even though there's a lot of bad ones, I think is definitely underrated for something that is so iconic. At least the first movie, is so iconic and so important to the history of cinema. So,
okay, we got the super chat from Brian Smith. And we'll keep going for about 10 more minutes answering some of your questions. So if you definitely want us to tackle something, send it in as a super chat and we will definitely get to it. So we'll just close out just a few more questions on here if you want to send those in. And, but yeah, we'll tackle a couple quick ones in the comments. Brian Smith says, what's your favorite snack and drink at the theater? Where do you sit? And then there's a bonus question on it. So for me, I just get popcorn. If I go on a date with my wife, then we go to one of the places that serves full service, so Alamo Draft House or Flick's Brew House, and we'll order pizza. I just sit in the dead center, just as close to the dead center as I can is where I go. And that's from the sides, from the front, from the back, right there in the middle. And where do I sit? What do I drink? I normally get a soda. If it's just me right now, these days I'm getting Coke, and if it's someone else, then it's if my wife's with me, I think we get Dr. Pepper. How about you?
I think for me, well, I don't usually. I'm weird. I don't usually get food or snacks when I go to the movies. I just go to like a nice middle of everything, like middle section, middle like height, and all whatnot. But if I do decide to get snacks, I mean, I just go for like buttered popcorn.
And then he says,
"That's just sometimes you just really want that."
Yeah, butter. It's very It hits the spot. It feels like feels like a movie activity. And then he says, "What's the worst movie of all time?" Picking the worst movie of all time is really tough because there's just a lot of things that are just very unbelievably poorly made, and so therefore that's the reason that they're the worst. So if you think like worst blockbusters, I don't know. It's really tough. Because you're the difference between an incompetently made in a movie that is professionally made but just so blah. It's like some of the stuff they were doing those last few Transformers movies with Michael Bay are just disheartening because there's no reason for them to be so blah. Because he can do better movies. He has done better movies. He's done better Transformers movies. He just chose to make incomprehensible nonsense. And the studio chose to give him $200 million to do it. But there's a lot of things like that it's more the cynical studio stuff that I normally think of when I think of worst. Of course, The Room is wonderfully awful, where every decision they make is the worst possible decision they could make. How about you? What are some that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, Pan, that Joe Wright Peter Pan movie with Hugh Jackman as Blackbeard is absolute garbage. Genuinely one of the worst theatrical experiences I've ever had. And the movie is awful. So bad. I mean, it's really easy to go make fun of Fan Four Stick, but I wouldn't say it's one of the worst movies of all time, because I think the first act of that is actually pretty watchable.
Yeah, it's a movie that you like. It's totally fine until they get their powers, and then it goes off the rails. Yeah, and it's an incomplete movie. But ones like that also I would point to where it's like stuff happened. They had a bunch of money and stuff happened, and so you have something that's. I'd much rather pick on that than crazy Tommy Wiseau being like, "Hey, I'm going to make a movie." And
that's right. Yeah,
that people that don't know what they're doing, of course, make bad ones. So we got a few super chats I want to, and then Griffin's got to take off. I can probably stick around a little bit longer. So Griffin, if you need to take off, just let me know when you need to.
Sure thing.
And so Neapolitan says, "Would you watch Boondock Saints 3 if they made it?" So if you guys don't know Boondock Saints, the original one came out, I don't know, 21, 22 years ago. Very stylized 90s style action movie that clearly had some of the influence from the Tarantino type stuff while being also influenced by the way action was being done at the time. I was a big fan of the first one. I still haven't seen the second one.
I haven't seen the second one either. I really like the first one though, a lot.
And that seems to be the case for a lot of people, that it was like, oh man, the first one, really cool little action movie. I just never got around to watching the second one, which is weird. That's a very strange recurring theme that both me and the fact that I would say that isn't too surprising, because I saw the original when it first came out 20 years ago. And so was really into it a long time ago. But even people that kind of probably watch it, you probably didn't go watch Boondock Saints when you were 6. Even people that
no,
even the people that watched it later on also likewise were kind of like, I never even got around to watching the second one. That's interesting as a pattern. So So if they made a third one, I'd watch all three so I could do a ranking. But I haven't even watched the second one yet, so that's not normally a good sign of my my intrigue in something.
Mm-hmm.
Majestic Demon says Pirates of the Caribbean as a trilogy is just as good as the Dark Knight trilogy. Well, I will hard disagree with that. But
Yeah,
I'm not.
even me, who's like a big defender of those movies, like that is, I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, I've I started to do a rewatch of the Pirates movie.
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. He's saying Planet of the Apes,
Oh,
not
Planet
Pirates
of
of
the
the
Apes.
Caribbean.
Oh,
Oh,
I
okay.
can't
That's
read.
okay. Now that's a little bit better.
I saw it. Yeah, as normal POTC is what I saw in Planet of the Apes. I don't normally see POTA as for Planet of the Apes, so I misread that one. Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
I think it's more consistent, but I'm a little bit more critical of Dark Knight Rises. So which one? If I'm going to a desert island, I would take the Batman movies because it's Batman. Which one do I think is a little bit, the lows aren't as low? I think Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer the Dark Knight trilogies, just in general, and I mean, because I don't, obviously, I'm way higher on the Dark Knight Rises than you are, but yeah, for me, the weakest one in the Planet of the Apes trilogy is Rise, and I usually never have the urge to watch that one. Even though it's good, it's just, it feels so detached from the other two, whereas like the Nolan trilogy, with everything that happens in The Dark Knight Rises or whatever, like it all feels consistent from a visionary standpoint. If Matt Reeves had done the first Planet of the Apes films, then I think there's more of a conversation to be had here. But
yeah, and I love Rise. I don't even see what, I don't know what Matt Reeves would do to improve it because I think it's just so well done.
yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily. Well, I agree. It's not like
why do you hate Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Griffin? This is offensive.
Listen, I really like Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I
really like Rise, Dark Knight Rises too. So like we're debating over which movie that we're like really like, but it's not quite as good as the movies that we love. So
right.
Anyway,
yeah, no, yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's not like it would change much if Reeves directed it. It would just be more like consistent from like a, vision standpoint, I guess. And definitely like, I assume it would feel more like a Matt Reeves movie than a Rupert Wyatt movie. So
even with the way that trilogy's done though, having a little bit of a gap between those two in the vibe even kind of makes sense. Because one is before.
It does.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, next question we got. Gavin Murphy says, "Hey Sean, what's your favorite movie poster you own?" I've got a Rocky 4 poster right. Well, I can turn this around and show you guys. There you go. I got a Rocky 4 poster right there that a fan sent to me, and that's a cool poster because I mean, especially like the with the framing and everything on my wall. That's that one I really like right there. So, what's your favorite poster that you own?
This Dr. No one right here. That is probably my favorite one I own. I just love the art style of it, and yeah,
that's a good one. Kevin Hernandez says, "What are the movies? What are the movies so bad the sequel was even worse?" The bad movies that got a worse sequel, I guess is what the question is. I mean, the bunch of the Transformers stuff. I was never like, the first Transformers was amazing. Like, I was never that guy. I was more like, oh, this is good blockbuster. I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of as far as I went with it. And then it would just, these are only getting worse. What is going on here? What are some other ones that have
bad movies that got a
worse
sequel?
I think there's a lot of horror franchises that have done that.
Because
they make them cheap, and then they just kind of keep going, cranking stuff out that's not very good.
Ghost Rider Ghost Rider is legitimately the only one I can think of where it's like the first one wasn't good, it was okay, and the second one, while stylistically more interesting, is borderline unwatchable. Like it's just so bad.
Yeah. But there is that amazing sequence where he pees fire. So,
He does pee fire.
that makes it an immediate A+ for me.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
You say you need to take off now?
Yes, yeah, I got a few things I got to take care of.
Thank you so
I
much
will
for joining in. Everybody follow him, Film
Yeah.
Speak, Griffin Schiller. Track him down everywhere. We should be back next week. I think next week we'll try and have a third guest with us for our little live stream. Talk to you later.
Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be?
That's a good
big
question.
Oh, wait, that's actually a good question. Who is it going to be?
We are legitimately not sure who's going to be it. All right, I've cut him off. So
sure.
Cut him off, and let me just adjust real quick. Saying goodbye to him over on Skype. Bye-bye, Griffin.
Goodbye.
All right, now you guys get the full desk view. So I'll keep on here for 10-ish more minutes or so. We'll see what happens. All right. Nathan Taylor says, what's your favorite Val Kilmer movie? So if any movie that Val Kilmer is in, my favorite of the bunch would have to be Top Gun. He's not the lead, but he's very prominent in the original, or the original as if we already have Maverick, which we don't yet. So he's one of the main characters in Top Gun. So easily Top Gun would be one of my favorites to throw in there. Beyond that, it's kind of a guilty pleasure one, The Saint with Elizabeth Shue. I guess they just announced yesterday that they're doing a remake with Chris Pine. That's one that I saw in the theater. It's not a great movie, but I've always gotten a kick out of it. Willow, one other one I grew up watching a lot of, which is a George Lucas fantasy story, and he's kind of the Han Solo type character. He did a spoof movie called Top Secret, the kind of that airplane era, airplane style spoof movie called Top Secret. So those are some that come to mind. I might be missing some really obvious ones. I mean, obviously it was Batman Forever, but I wouldn't immediately pick that as a favorite. So I'm sure I'm missing some obvious classic Val Kilmer movies. Questions. Priya says, what grade will you give The Godfather? I don't offhand have grades for movies. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. I haven't watched The Godfather in a number of years. So that's why I don't kind of just randomly talk about it. And I certainly wouldn't want to give a score to something without watching it. And I get myself in trouble when I do some of that stuff. Like I've accidentally scored some stuff on like Letterboxd, and I'll put a score on something because I'm just casually, people know my thoughts real quick if I do this. And then I put out my favorites list, or I put out some other list to be like, hey, why did you give this movie this score on here, but it's not on this ranking and on this? And so I try to not actually put too many of my opinions out there if I'm not giving a full review where I can elaborate on what I mean by things. But I don't just score things without recently watching them. Neapolitan with Super Chat. Thanks so much. Would you rank every Robin Hood movie? Probably not, because there's a whole lot of them. I mean, I don't know how many Robin Hood movies there are, and that's kind of the problem, is that they keep doing them. They keep making new ones, but not everybody watches them. And so you have like a BBC original movie. You've got movies from the 40s, 60s. And so when the ranking is a bunch of movies that nobody's really seen, because even like the same year that Robin Hood Princess Thieves came out, there's a British Robin Hood as well. And I think like Uma Thurman is in it. So there's so many of them that people don't even know exist. And those don't tend to be good rankings for me. When I want a video that you can participate in, everyone can participate in. And so then when it's not that, it's me talking about obscure stuff, it just doesn't really work. Oh, here's Luke the Carrot Tree, D Now 2021. So I spoke at an event, a church retreat back in February that he was at. And if they'd have me back, if they invite me back, I would say yes. So I really enjoyed that. And that was a good experience for me. And so, yeah, if you can get Dan to invite me back, I would go for it. Better series, The Hunger Games or Divergent franchise? I never really got into Divergent. I don't even remember which ones I've seen, how many of them I've seen, or any of that stuff. And so I just by default go with The Hunger Games. I'm not crazy about The Hunger Games, but that's the one that I would lean towards a little bit more. So, Iron Cap. Who is your favorite comic book movie director? Um, I don't know. I mean, I think the Russos have a really good batting average. Done some pretty great stuff, and Christopher Nolan has a really good batting average. Christopher Nolan, though, did a little bit more. He did movies based off a comic book character. They, of course, fall into that genre, but they're also trying to not be that genre. So when I think comic book movie, I think the Russos have more leaned into the actual genre and done things I really enjoyed. Whereas Christopher Nolan took a character from the genre and tried to like take influences from Heat and these other types of movies and did something a little bit different with it. So I guess would by default have to go with the Russos on that one. Um, so I think that's what I would say. Question. Okay. A lot of you guys keep asking like most over and underrated type questions. I really don't have good answers on some of that stuff. For all the reasons we've said in this stream already of like I don't even like to have to define a term in order to answer your question, and I don't have to have to give all these prefaces. And inherently with overrated, underrated, that's what you have to do. Headcanon, favorite Brad Bird movie, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol for me. I know a lot of people love Incredibles 2, but what's the one that I actually watch more and get more my kind of movie? Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, just some incredible sequences, moves at a great pace, has a really good sense of humor, and franchise 4 movies into it, and they made one of the better movies in it. Let's see. Questions. So a lot of questions. I'm having trouble finding questions because there's so many that are being repeated and spammed that I can't um, find a question that is a good one for me to answer. Okay, here's a question I think we got last week I didn't answer. Thomas 1, do you prefer Watchmen or The Boys? Watchmen I thought was more kind of intellectually interesting. The Boys was the one that was the more rewatchable series. Um, there was a bunch like I respected what they did with Watchmen a great deal, and was like that was really cool, very well thought out. But The Boys was one that was like, oh, I can't wait to watch more of this. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. So that would be kind of the difference that I saw there. So I'm gonna go for okay. We're at it's 1:13 my time. Let's say that I'll go about 10 more minutes, and if you want to send it a super chat, I'll definitely answer all of those, and I'll try and just kind of fly through a bunch of these questions as best I can. Please don't spam me. If you ask the same question 4 times in a row, I'm not going to answer your question. Elijah Norris, did you like Batman versus Superman? I did, and I've got reviews out there, I've got rankings out there where I talk about all this and elaborate on. But like I see the faults that people mentioned, but at the same time, I I think it had merit to it. Favorite origin story in the MCU or DCEU? Origin story in the MCU, I think, as just a section, Steve Rogers, that first hour of Captain America, I think is really well done. Um, as a movie, they play out Iron Man as a better movie to kind of tell the whole thing. In the DCEU, they haven't really done origins in that traditional sense, so I don't know that I have a pick over there. That's not the way that they've necessarily decided to do their stuff. Um, Okay. Rooster Freak. Hey, Sean, do I have to watch the animated Clone Wars movie before watching the Clone Wars? I heard it sucks. Yeah, so basically it's just 4 episodes of the TV show edited together. That's one of the reasons it sucks, is that it's a TV show just edited into a movie. That's not how you make a movie. I don't think so. I mean, if you're gonna watch all of it, of course if you're like, hey, I want to watch the Clone Wars, then you should watch it, like, because that's part of it. It's just, hey, it's like saying I want to watch the whole thing except the parts I don't want to watch. Well, then you don't want to watch the whole thing. If you want to watch the whole thing, of course you need to watch it. If you just want to watch the good stuff, you'd have to find someone else that could tell you what the good stuff is. Connor McCaffrey, what's your favorite video game? I did a video on that very recently. I did that back in February, so that's got my list of my favorites in there, so you can check that out, and it'll elaborate on all of that. ESA, do you plan on doing a ranking of all the DC movies? Yeah, I plan to do that when Wonder Woman comes out. I've already started on it, and the movie got delayed, so that's unfortunate. Fluffy's favorite Spielberg movie: Jurassic Park, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jaws, Schindler's List. I have a video where I talked about 5 of them, but those are some that come to mind. Oh, Fluffy, you're spamming me. Please don't spam me. Ranch King, thoughts on upcoming Obi-Wan series? I'm excited for it. I've normally been very much against them returning to the same time period between episode 2 and episode 4, where they just spent so much time with the Clone Wars series, Revenge of the Sith, Solo, Rebels, Rogue One. There's so much content in the same window of times. I've normally like move away from it, move away from it, move away from it, move away from it. The one exception, I think, is Obi-Wan, because the actor has aged into it. That you have a character that we know is just out there for 20 years, and he's still a great actor. He's still a box office draw. And now, 20 years after he did Phantom Menace, 15 years after he did Revenge of the Sith, he's still out there. And so I think there's some interesting things you could do with that. Neapolitan, Mark Hamill, Joker, or Heath Ledger's, who's better? I don't think it's necessarily a fair comparison, because you're talking about a voice actor who's done that for over 25 years versus an actor who did it live action for one movie. Those are two wildly different things to compare to one another, and that makes it difficult to comment on, because you can tell where, like, when you have one story with Heath Ledger versus dozens of stories, like dozens of stories in different contexts, they're just two wildly different things to compare. So if the question is, I don't know, I just don't even know it. I feel like Heath Ledger's is this very pocket universe take on a Batman character. That's all the Nolan stuff. It's pocket universe. And you're comparing that to Mark Hamill, who was able to do a very full, holistic translation of the Joker that's true to the comics, has had relationships, invented the Harley Quinn character through that version of the Joker, and he's played it so many times in so many different ways, versus one story. I don't know how you compare those two things. I don't even know what exactly you are comparing. If the question is, would I rather have all of the Batman the Animated Series and Batman movies and Batman video games that Mark Hamill was a part of, or just The Dark Knight, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with all this stuff if I'm on that desert island, as opposed to that one movie, even though I love that movie, because I also love that TV series. TV series is in movies is. So it's a tough question, because I just don't know how to compare the two things. Elijah Nora. Well, no, you spammed the question, so I can't answer it. Usam, would you want another Batman animated series? The animated series. If you mean would I want them to continue doing with the one they did before, probably not. Just because I think some of the magic of the youth of the people that did that film at the time, they're just not the same anymore. They've gone back to it, and they've done more stuff that falls into that continuity. And it's not good. It's the worst stuff they've ever done. and their sense of humor doesn't land quite right, and they've added weird stuff. And it's the guys that did Batman the Animated Series also were some of the people that did the Killing Joke, and they're like, what if Batman and Batgirl were hooking up? Then that's a good lead into the Killing Joke, right? No, man, that's pretty weird. Then what if Batgirl's talking to her gay friend about her boss? That's just that's a stereotype. What are you guys doing? And there's stuff like that I just think they've lost their way a little bit. So as much as I love Batman the Animated Series, and I'd be open to new animated Batman series, I'm fine with that. But do I want the Batman the Animated Series more of that? Nah, I don't think I would want that. Once again, if you spam me with questions, I'm kind of shutting down on some of that stuff because I just can't find questions of people that are only asking a reasonable number of times. So if you ask it 2 times in a row, I'm just not answering your question. Peyton Little, have you seen Tiger King? Yes, I watched Tiger King. I wasn't on the first wave of it. I was like right after it became a big thing. Then I watched it and binged it in one sitting. I was like, I guess I'll just check out an episode. And like, okay, might as well put a second one on and then I'll go to bed. And then I ended up just watching the whole thing until like 4 a.m. Just weird, captivating that this is real life. And such a bizarre set of humans all ended up in the same place. And so many weird things happened. And there's so many different ways to think about it too, because there's the weird characters, there's the hitman, what is and isn't true, what did and didn't happen. And then beyond that, just we're not even talking about the animals yet. So really interesting, captivating stuff that some people are like, I get if someone says this isn't for me, when some people are like, oh, I was just bored by it. It's like, I don't get that. David Kuyore, how many Funko Pops do you have now? I don't really know the number. I did a Funko Pop collection video back in February, and I think I have like 10 more since then, 5 more since then. I'm not quite sure the number I've added, but it's not a huge number more. So whatever I had back then, plus just a few. Billy Bob Joe, do you like Billie Eilish? I couldn't name a single song that she does, so I don't know much of anything about her. Unfortunately. So be like, what do you think about her being the person to do the new James Bond song? I don't know anything for music, so I don't know anything about it. Can't really comment on it. Red 5, thoughts on the Cassian Andor series? Seems like a weird direction to take things. Somewhat to even what I mentioned before, it's one more series kind of in the same window of time between episode 2 and episode 4, and I don't want them to keep going back to that exact same window of time. So that's frustrating to me that they're doing that. And he's not like the most interesting character. So of all the things you could do with Star Wars, Obi-Wan, I like that. Mandalorian, I like that. Cassian Andor, that's easily on concept alone my least favorite of the bunch. A bunch of people asking this question: what do you think of the new Clone Wars season, or is the new Clone Wars season good? Yeah, I've enjoyed it thus far. I'm not a big Clone Wars fanatic. I think a bunch of people want me to kind of be a little bit more into it than I am. And so while I have technically seen all the seasons before, I'm not, I didn't watch them. So I'm trying to rewatch it now so that maybe someday I can do a ranking, but it's not working very well. It's just very slow progress on getting it watched. And I'm watching the new season and I'm enjoying it. And it's better than season 1 and 2, and filling some things out in details. I think there's some interesting stories that they're telling, but I'm still not like a big fanatic of the show in general. Okay. Dr. Manhattan, which HBO Max original are you most excited for? I don't know what any of the originals are. I don't know what any of them are. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you because I just haven't been tracking that stuff. I was actually wondering about, now that they've announced the release date of it, I was like, oh, I should look into what's actually on there, since I don't know. I know there's that Friends thing, but I'm just not interested in that at all. Neapolitan with Super Chat says, thanks for answering my questions. Have a good day. You too. Have a good day. Thomas 1, what are your thoughts on the Harley Quinn? Favorite adaptation of Harley Quinn so far? It can be animated or live action. I would just default to Batman the Animated Series because we just got a lot more story with her. Once again, you're comparing that to the live action movies, you got 2 stories with her versus many stories before, and that's what I would go with. Wild West Cat. Do you watch the Cube movies? I've seen the first Cube movie. I actually watched it prom night. I don't know what other people do after prom. I went back to a house and we watched Cube, is what we did. So it's been a long time since I watched it, but I saw it several times back in the day, but I haven't seen any of the sequels. Zakari, what are your thoughts on Breaking Bad? One of the greatest shows of all time. I've got a ranking of the seasons. I talk about it in my favorite TV shows of all time video, so that you can look up some of that stuff to kind of hear my more elaborate thoughts on that. All right. Nico Steele, what is the Cube movie? So basically, the first Cube movie, it's basically a group of people wake up and they're in a cube. They don't know how they got there, and they're realize that they're in a room that's a set of deadly puzzles, and they're trying to get out of this big gigantic cube. And so they move from one room to the next room, and there's new dangers that kill people off. So you've seen similar concepts in other movies. Escape Room kind of felt a lot like Cube, a modernization of Cube. And you kind of like learn throughout the movie some of the, like, where did the cube come from, but you don't learn a lot about it. So yeah, it's like it's a small film because it's, they're only in the cube. You don't see anything outside of it at all. But it's kind of like horror film. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and close out. See if there's any quick questions that I can answer that I haven't answered elsewhere or that I wasn't spammed on. Here's an important comment. Michael Audrey Myers, you hair. Wow. Yes. I think you mean your hair. Yes. It's big. Going big today. So there we go. I woke up and went, that looks ridiculous, and so put hairspray in it. So it locked that crazy in place, and then the beard fluffed it out a little bit to get a little bit extra crazy looking. Okay, here's what I got to pull up. Definitely got to pull this up. Colin Williams had a super chat on this one before, like an hour before the stream started, so I wasn't able to tackle it. So I got to bring this one up right now. Colin Williams, another versus video idea: Avatar versus Dances with Wolves. Now that would be fun. So if you don't know what he's talking about, me and him did a video on his channel. He's got a YouTube channel just like mine, rankings, movie reviews, all that fun stuff. Same types of content. I was over on his channel 2-3 weeks back. We talked about Baby Driver and Drive, compared the two, and so he's proposing other movies we could do this with. One he's proposing is Avatar and versus Dances with Wolves. You could also throw into that The Last Samurai, my favorite of that bunch. Same exact plot as both of those movies. So if you're looking for another channel, check out Colin Williams' channel. Perhaps in the future, you'll see us doing more of these contrast videos, maybe even debating Avatar and Dances with Wolves. Actually, I've never seen Dances with Wolves, so maybe that one's my favorite. I just haven't actually seen the movie to be able to fully comment on it. And Mr. Mangohead Jr. is asking me, what do I think about all this situation in the world? I'm not going to name it because I don't want to get demonetized, even though I might have already been demonetized. They get picky about what words you mention. What do I think about all of it? It's unprecedented, so it's tough to process and have something meaningful to say that's not insensitive or stupid. Yeah. It's a very weird time where you kind of go, nothing like this has ever happened. It's totally unprecedented. So anyone that's speaking with confidence about what we should do, and like, this is what's really going on. Okay, well, you might be right, but then again, this is a very odd time. So where do you have a background to be able to be so confident about how to deal with an unprecedented situation? So I'm pretty, anyone that gets too certain about what should and shouldn't be done, I'm very skeptical about that. Craig Horrocks, how often do you do these live streams? I'm trying, now that we're kind of doing this quarantine thing where we're locked in, I'm trying to do 2 per week. right now, my podcast, this is actually technically the tail end of my podcast. What we're trying to do is record them live Wednesdays right around lunch Central Time Zone. So that's kind of what's going on with this one, is that every Wednesday I'm doing the podcast, and then I stick around and do Q&A afterwards, just for the fun of it. And then I'm trying to do one on Saturdays as well, also right around lunchtime. So I'm trying to do a couple per week right now, since we're all sitting at home. I'm just sitting at home, and so it's just one more way to put out some content when we're not getting new movies, and so it's and they've been going well for me. Luke Brown, are you going to watch Extraction on Netflix? Yeah, of course. If you don't, every week I post my schedule for the week on my community tab, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I say what I'm going to do, and Extraction is on there. And we also talked about it in this live stream. And actually, Griffin gave a review for it. So absolutely, I'm planning on doing that. Trying to get a good like final question. Here's a quick thing. I'll just throw an answer. Debo, what do you think will happen in Spider-Man 3? I did a video on it not very long ago. You can look that up, Sean Chandler Spider-Man 3, with my thoughts on that. Oh, so Brian Smith said, actually glad you decided to do the podcast, even though it was on your list of things not to do. I enjoy you and Griffin. It was on my list of things not to do when I went full-time on YouTube. It's not so simple as I just never planned on doing a podcast. It's that I delayed launching it for a while. So when I went full-time on YouTube, I had a big, gigantic list of things I wanted to try and do, and podcast was on there. I'm interested in writing a book, creating a course, all kinds of things. And so I made a list of things not to do when I went full time, because I needed to focus on what was my hit content, what actually is successful for me. And what's successful for me is, obviously rankings, talking about big franchises. So I wanted to lean into what worked, do that with excellence when I launched. So it worked. So 6 months after I went full time, I went, all right, I'm going to start thinking about adding some of these things back in. So then I launched the podcast in February. And it was a full year after I went full time is when I did it. So it was on my not to do list for when I went full time. But a year later, I wasn't just launching. So then it made sense to put something new on there. And then now that that's kind of even happened, I'm working on developing a course and some other stuff like that. So it's not just a matter of so that's just a matter of it was on my not to do list. It was not to do list for a period of time. Once that period of time passed, then it became a priority. Mr. Hank Megahead Jr., are you planning on doing a movie commentaries? Not really. I don't think so. I've done some of that in the past. I might do some of it again in the future, but it's not a priority. They're a little bit weird. I did like a watch along party on like Infinity War, and I didn't know what to do. So it's like I'm watching a movie, I'm trying to comment on the movie, and I'm also responding to comments. And so when it's just you, that it's a little bit weird to do it. So if I had some other people, that could be fun. And maybe I should do some of those Netflix watch parties or whatever people are doing. That could be fun. Something else that saved the city. Are you going to watch Stargirl on CW? I doubt it, because I'm just so burned out on Arrowverse right now that I just don't have much interest in adding any more shows. They've just kind of sucked my interest out of all of it. Hugh McCartney, what's your favorite TV series? I have a video where I list off like 10, 15 of them or something like that. So you can check that out. It elaborates on all of that stuff. So you can check that out once we're done on here. Elijah Norris, will you start interviewing celebrities again? I don't control that. Like it's not like I can be like, hey, celebrities, come on here. Basically we're, as best we get access to people we have. So, I mean, like there was something we applied for this episode related to Extraction that I just got told no about. Like I was communicating with them about potentially interviewing the Russo brothers over the phone for the podcast. So I just can't control when that happens. It's not like I have Tom Cruise's phone number. Be like, hey, Tom, want to come on the podcast? So it's all about when there's invitations opens and do I get yeses and nos. And then I've reached out to some people to be on the podcast as a guest, and it just hasn't happened. So, I'm trying to make things happen, but sometimes you get stuff and sometimes you don't. And I had a bunch of yeses for a little bit there, and I've gotten a bunch of no's recently. So that's life. All right, let's close it out right there. Where I've been talking for 2.5 hours, so and I'm actually doing an interview in about an hour and a half, so I need to eat lunch real quick. But someone said real quick, I'll throw this out there. Whatever your name is, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Have you seen Firefly? Yeah, I've seen Firefly. I mean, I talked about it in a video. I think yesterday's video, I talked about it. The death video, it came up in there. So absolutely, I have. All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Should be back next Wednesday at the same time, and I think I'll be back Saturday at about the same time as well to do some live stuff and talk with you guys. Greatly appreciated, and keep talking movies too much.